Chapter 57. 3 days of filming for the show passed very quickly. The production team had just finished filming and held a donation ceremony with the local government. After that, they had a special gathering for a meal. Fu Yunruo considered that Wen was still young, so he only brought him to the scene before going back. Siyu sat for a while before leaving and sending them back to the village with the chauffeur. It was inevitably not safe to drive at night, so the speed was slower. Fu Yunruo heard that all the guests and staff of the production team would be leaving the village tomorrow, so he asked, "Mr. Yu, are you leaving tomorrow morning too?" With the production team. Fu Yunruo thought that since they were acquaintances, he would send Siyu off when he left. Wen was originally very excited in the car because the director had already settled Wen's appearance fee. Wen had received his first bucket of gold. He held the card all the way and was so excited that his little face was flushed. After hearing Fu Yunruo's question, he instantly quieted down and couldn't help but look at Siyu. "Uncle Yu, are you leaving?" Wen looked at him eagerly. Even though he knew the answer in his heart, he couldn't help but want to confirm it again. Siyu smiled. "Wen can't bear to part with me." Wen awkwardly turned his little head to the side. "I can't bear to part with you." However, he couldn't help but glance at Siyu from the corner of his eyes. "Little guy." Siyu's gaze was gentle as he answered their question. "I'm not going with the production team. I'm going to stay for 2 more days. You won't not welcome me, right?" Wen visibly became happy. Fu Yunruo couldn't help but laugh. "No." Wen was very happy and couldn't wait for him to stay for a few more days. The car stopped by the roadside. Siyu sent Fu Yunruo and Wen home before going to the Mei family's house. Tian and Qian Xingnan were surprised to see the two of them return so quickly, but they were very happy. "Wen, how was your trip? Were you happy?" "Happy." Wen could not help but run in front of Fu Yun. She handed the card to Fu Yun and said reservedly, "I'll buy you beautiful clothes and cosmetics." All the money he had earned was here. Yes, he could earn a lot more money in the future. Fu Yun was overjoyed. She hugged Wen and kissed her twice. "Wen is so amazing. It's great that you can support your mother at such a young age." Wen's little belly stuck out even more. He was grinning from ear to ear. He could earn money to support his mother. Tian was extremely envious. She also wanted to give birth to such a sensible and considerate baby. If Fu Yun kept the bank card properly, this card would be used to store Wen's money in the future. She could not bear to use it. If Fu Yun asked Yuan Axayan to use the production team's name to donate a sum of money to the village, there was also a possibility. Tian also made a trip with Yuan Axayan and finally donated the money. Other than that, it was said that Siyu also donated a sum of money in his own name. He hoped that this sum of money would be put to good use. Fu Yun put down a load of worry and was in an extremely good mood. After Wen was happy, she suddenly sighed in disappointment. "What's wrong, baby?" Wen said dejectedly, "Uncle Yu is leaving too." Although he was 2 days late, he would still leave. They had not spent much time together, but he was a little reluctant to part. Thinking that they might not have the chance to meet in the future, he was a little sad. Fu Yun saw Wen like this and hugged him. Just as she was about to organize her words to comfort him, Wen perked up and said to Fu Yun, "Mom, let's go find Uncle Yu tomorrow and the day after." Okay. The next day, the production team left one after another. Fu Yun specially sent Axayan Su off and gave him some local specialties. Axayan Su left reluctantly and repeatedly emphasized that they must keep in touch. After that, Fu Yun worked in the flower bed while Wen and Siyu worked outside. The orchids they planted on the roof had already withered, but they did not know who would die first. Hence, the eldest brother did not laugh at the second brother and encouraged each other to plant another orchid. Fu Yun let them be and seriously taught Qian Xingnan to do some simple chores. Yuan Axayan sat in the bungalow and calmly gave Tian Tian some pointers on the studio's experience. At night, they returned to the village to spend the night. After 2 days, Siyu and Yuan Axayan left. Fu Yun personally sent them off with Wen. Aunt May and Uncle May carried a lot of local specialties and even gave them 2 bags of grains. In a short while, the entire back of the car was filled. It was rare for Wen to be silent. She held Fu Yun's hand and kept her head down. Before getting into the car, Siyu walked in front of Wen and squatted down. Then, he said gently, Wen, aren't you going to say something to Uncle? Wen lowered her head and looked at the ground but did not look at him. Uncle is leaving. Siyu rubbed his little head. Don't cry secretly. I won't. Wen raised his head and retorted. He was already a mature child who could earn money. He would not cry secretly. Yes, Wen is a mature and steady little adult. When we come to the capital in the future, Uncle will take you to the amusement park to play. You said it. If I can't do it, then Uncle will be a puppy. Wen felt awkward for a while, then stretched out her pinky. Pinky swear. Yes, pinky swear. Siyu stood up and looked at Fu Yun, but did not say anything. He only said, take care. Fu Yun also replied, have a safe trip. No matter how reluctant she was, it was time to leave. Siyu hugged Wen and got into the car. Soon, the car started slowly and drove away. Wen looked up and saw the car gradually drive away. He instinctively wanted to chase after it, but he only moved a little and eventually stayed where he was. Fu Yun carried Wen and rubbed the back of his head. She said gently, Wen, if you're sad, just cry. Mommy is here. Wen hugged Fu Yun and held back his tears for a long time. In the end, he could not hold them back and simply burst into tears. He was actually a little sad, just a little sad. It was all because a child's body could not control his emotions. Fu Yun's heart ached when she heard this, but she also heaved a sigh of relief. It was better to be able to cry than to be sad. She did not know if it was the right choice not to stop Wen and Siyu from getting close. Siyu kept looking at the rearview mirror until the group of people behind him gradually became smaller and completely disappeared from his sight. He only looked away after a long time. Yuan Axayan said, if you really can't bear to part with her, why don't you say it openly? It's not time yet. Yuan Axayan thought about it and understood what Siyu meant. He could not help but click his tongue. What a scheming man. Wasn't he worried that if he said it out loud, Fu Yun would be afraid that he wanted to snatch the child away, or even that she would not go to the capital and continue to stay in the small village to avoid him? He did not know if he should sympathize with Fu Yun if Siyu took a liking to Fu Yun or laugh at Siyu for putting in so much effort for a woman. Siyu closed his eyes and rested for a long time before saying softly, soon, Uncle May and Aunt May surrounded Wen and coaxed him. However, the more people coaxed, the more Wen cried. In the end, Fu Yun coaxed, don't cry. We will be going to the capital soon. When the time comes, we can go and play with Uncle Yu. Wen stopped crying and looked at Fu Yun with his red eyes. Ruoruo, have you decided? Aunt May asked happily. However, when she thought about how there would be fewer opportunities to meet Ruoruo and Wen after they left, her happiness turned into a strong reluctance. Uncle May said, it's good to go to the capital. Then, he entered the house with his hands behind his back. Aunt May sighed and said to Ruoruo, don't worry about that old man. It's a good thing that you are going to the big city to develop your career. We are all happy for you. Fu Yun nodded. She was actually not happy. It was good to stay here. There was no competition and the years were peaceful. There was too much reluctance here, but there was always a choice, even though making this decision made her very uncomfortable. Fu Yun looked at the little guy in her arms. She would have to stay outside for at least 10 or 20 years. When she could completely let go, she could return here. She just hoped that by then, things would not change. Fu Yun and Aunt May chatted for a long time before returning to the old house. Wen could not help but ask softly, "Mom, are we going to the capital?" "I plan to." Wen could not help but jump for joy. Didn't that mean he could see Uncle Yu often? Fu Yun saw how happy he was and did not have the heart to tell him that even if they were in the same city, they might not be able to see each other. Wen was happy for a while, but then he thought, wouldn't he have to leave the village? Wouldn't he rarely see Grandpa May, Grandma May, and Grandpa Gua in the future? He would not be able to see his group of underlings anymore. Also, just thinking about it made him sad. The tears that had just fallen welled up. Wen cried even more sadly. He did not want to leave them. What's wrong? Fu Yun was confused when she heard Wen's sudden crying. Hadn't she already coaxed him? When Fu Yun asked why Wen was crying again, Wen, don't cry. Mom will bring you back for the new year every year during the winter holidays. You can even play with your friends then, Fu Yun coaxed for a long time. And we'll also bring Grandpa Guo with us. He'll come with us. Wen sobbed. Really? Yes, but if Grandpa Guo is unwilling to go with us, we'll have to rely on you. Wen wiped his tears and nodded. Yes, if Grandpa Guo was also with them, then he would be less sad. Tian brought a basin of warm water over and teased, Come. Wipe the little crybaby's face. Wen hugged Fu Yun very embarrassedly and buried his face in it. It was so embarrassing. He actually cried again. Fu Yun looked at Tian with a smile. She knew that Wen cared about his reputation, but she still exposed him. Tian covered her mouth and snickered. Tian did not stay for 2 days and also left. The house was much quieter. Fortunately, Qian Xingnan was still around. To prevent Wen from letting his imagination run wild, Fu Yun asked Xingnan to drive him back to the village to play with his friends every day and come back together at night. With her looking after the child, she felt more at ease. Originally, Fu Yun only told Tian about this matter and asked her to help look out for housing. Since she had already told Uncle May and Aunt May, Fu Yun also told Uncle Guo about her plans. Uncle Guo, will you go to the capital with me? Uncle Guo had been frowning. When he heard this, he said in a rough voice, "It's so troublesome. I'm not going." If Fu Yun was mentally prepared, she knew that he would not agree so easily. Fu Yun said with a frown, Wen is about to start studying. The education resources in the big city are better for him. Actually, I don't want to go out either. I'm used to staying here. Moreover, there are those people in the capital. If I'm bullied, no one will help me. Uncle Guo understood who those people were. Hence, his frown deepened, but he still did not agree. Fu Yun did not expect to be able to convince Uncle Guo in a day or two. Anyway, there was still half a year. She quickly skipped this topic and did not mention it. Fu Yun live-streamed continuously for a few days. Some time ago, because of Wen's participation in the show, her popularity had doubled, but her live-streaming time had decreased by a lot. Now, she live-streamed once a day in the morning and evening. It could be considered as compensation for her fans. Fu Yun had just left the live stream when Tian called. Ruoro, I found a very suitable house. Tian Tian did not stop to introduce the location of the house, the environment of the community, and the surrounding facilities. Really? That's great, Tian Tian. Thank you for your hard work. It's not hard at all. It's what I should do. Ruoro, come and take a look when you're free. It's a rare opportunity. Although it's a second-hand house, it's still very new. If you miss it, it won't be easy to find a place that meets your requirements next time. Yes. I'll go over in the next 2 days. Tian Tian, you have to help me keep it. Fu Yun was extremely happy when she saw the photo that Tian Tian had taken. She had not seen it with her own eyes, but she liked it very much when she saw the photo. It was rare to find a house that she liked, and the price was also within her range of affordability. Fu Yun immediately checked the ticket and planned the route. When she ran here back then, she was in a daze the entire way. She did not remember how she got here at all. Now, it was as if it was her first time taking a ride. That night, Fu Yun told Wenwen and Qian Xingnan that she was going to the capital early the next morning. Originally, she had thought of going alone. After all, she was worried that Wenwen would not be able to adapt to the journey. However, Wenwen insisted on going with her. She cried and acted coquettishly. In the end, she had a headache and had no choice but to agree. Fortunately, Qian Xingnan was with her. Otherwise, she was not sure if she would dare to travel alone with her child. After a long journey, Fu Yun and the other two finally stepped onto the ground of the capital on the morning of the third day. Fu Yun Ruo felt that her feet were light as a feather when she stepped on the ground. Fu Yun Ruo carried Wenwen and Qian Xingnan as they walked along the crowd. Qian Xingnan was pushing a suitcase with a luggage bag on it. Wenwen fell asleep on Fu Yun Ruo's shoulder. As soon as they walked out of the exit, Tian Tian, who had been waiting outside, came up to them. It's been a long journey. She quickly took Wenwen. Fu Yun Ruo was very tired, so she did not refuse. Wenwen had just changed her position and woke up very quickly. She opened her sleepy eyes and called out, "Sister Tian Tian," in a daze. Then, she could not fall asleep. The car is outside. Tian Tian brought Fu Yun Ruo and the others to find their car. Fu Yun Ruo was happy when she saw that there was a children's chair in the middle of the back seat. Tian Tian was really thoughtful. After getting into the car, Fu Yun Ruo took off her hat. Her face was not very similar to usual. She was neither young nor old and could be considered a celebrity. In order to avoid trouble on the way, she and Wenwen had disguised themselves. Only then did Fu Yun Ruo know that Qian Xingnan had superb makeup skills. After her makeup, she only looked 20% like her original appearance. When others saw her, they would only think that she looked a little familiar and would not think of her. If she had not sent the photo to Tian Tian in advance, Tian Tian would not have recognized her. Tian Tian drove them out of the airport. Fu Yun Ruo looked at the traffic outside the window and the tall buildings. She was not used to such a bustling city. She wanted to see if it was different from what she remembered. The unique city landmarks were still there, but the details of the surrounding environment were a little different. It was not what she remembered. This was a city that was both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Not long after Wenwen got into the car, he quickly became energetic. He stretched his neck and wanted to look outside. He was extremely curious about the difference between the capital from 20 years ago and the future. Chapter 58. The red car stopped in a beautiful neighborhood. Tian Tian drove them back to her place. She had bought a 2-bedroom house in the capital 2 years ago. It was not big, but it was enough for her to live alone. She had already tidied up the guest room. Fu Yunruo and Wenwen would stay in the guest room for the time being, while Qian Xingnan would stay with her. The house is a little small. Don't mind it. How can that be? Fu Yunruo observed for a while and praised, did you design the structure of this house? It looks very warm and comfortable. Tiantian's house was decorated very warmly, and the design looked very classy. It did not look small at all. Looking at it made people feel comfortable, and they could see the beautiful scenery from the balcony. Although it was less than 90 square meters, she had struggled in the capital at a young age. She had a house and a car. Many people might not be able to achieve her achievements even after decades. It was very impressive. Tian smiled and said, how can I design? I hired a famous interior designer to help me design it. For this, she had spent a lot of money on design services, but for the sake of living comfortably, she gritted her teeth and spent it. Now, it seemed that the money was well spent. The bathroom is here. Tian introduced it briefly. I bought a few sets of daily necessities. Make do with them. Fu Yunruo looked around. There were 4 sets of toothbrushes and cups on the sink. One of them was a set of sky blue children's tools. It was obvious that it was prepared for Wenwen. There were also a few brand new towels hanging on the bathroom wall. You guys take a shower first and rest for a while. I've made an appointment to see the house at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. There's no rush. Tian knew that they were very tired at the moment, so she let them take a shower and then sleep for a while. When they recovered, they would go out to eat to welcome them. She was physically and mentally exhausted every time she took a long-distance car ride, so she felt the same way. Fu Yunruo nodded and did not refuse. After 2 to 3 days of traveling, she was indeed very tired. Fu Yunruo helped Wenwen take a shower first, and then it was her turn. After taking a shower, she felt much more comfortable. It was as if all her fatigue had been washed away. Tian was not idle either. She washed a lot of fruits and placed many delicious snacks on the coffee table in the living room. Wenwen sat on the sofa and looked at the TV screen hanging on the opposite wall. SpongeBob SquarePants was playing on it. On one hand, Wenwen felt that it was childish, but on the other hand, she was watching with great interest. Fu Yunruo's hair had just been blown dry. Her hair was thick and long, reaching her waist. She felt that it was rather inconvenient for her hair to be spread out in front of her chest, so she loosely tied up the end of her hair half a palm above her head. Mom, this snack is delicious. Wenwen saw Fu Yun walking over and quickly shared it with her. Tian poured a cup of warm water for Fu Yun and then sat down. This snack was brought back from abroad by a friend of mine. It is said that it is a very famous local pastry. Because she knew that Fu Yun and the others were coming over, she couldn't bear to eat them. Wenwen hurriedly gave Sister Tian a piece. Sister Tian, have some. Tian smiled instantly. Wenwen was really sensible. You don't have to specially entertain us. You're too polite. Tian smiled and said, I'm not being polite. It's rare for you to come to my house as a guest. I'm extremely happy. When I go to your house, you make delicious food for me every day. When I come back, I weigh it and I've already gained 3 kilograms. This time, I have to feed you until you gain 3 kilograms to be fair. Tian looked as if she could finally take revenge, which made Fu Yunruo laugh. They ate some fruits and snacks to fill their stomachs as they chatted. Not long after, Fu Yunruo took Wenwen to sleep. They slept until 5 o'clock. When they woke up, they felt refreshed and no longer felt dizzy. Then, Tian drove Fu Yunruo to dinner. I know a restaurant. The food is very delicious. I'll bring you guys to try it. You guys will definitely like it. Fu Yunruo nodded, yes, we're looking forward to it. Tian Tian brought Fu Yunruo to a private restaurant opened by an insider. It was more private. The four of them sat in a small private room. Tian Tian was obviously a regular here. She skillfully ordered a few signature dishes and then asked them to see if there was anything else they wanted to eat. Fu Yunruo looked at Wenwen. He was sitting on a children's chair that was specially moved in the restaurant. His two short legs were dangling in the air. Can these children eat it? Are there children's meals? No, they're fine. These aren't heavy. Some of them are quite popular with children. Fu Yunruo saw that they had ordered a lot of sweets, but they didn't order any of the dishes that they couldn't eat, so she said, that's it. While waiting for the dishes, Tian Tian and the others chatted casually. This is a restaurant opened by a food broadcaster on our platform. It hasn't been announced to the public. This broadcaster had a lot of fans. He liked to eat and cook, so he opened this restaurant. He basically stayed here. In order to prevent fans from disturbing him, he didn't announce it to the public. Of course, he opened a lot of chain restaurants under his name. Fans would go to those restaurants to check in. How many days can you guys stay in the capital this time? Tian Tian hoped that if Fu Yun could settle the house this time and there wouldn't be any accidents. If they were all in the capital, it would be easier to meet in the future. If things go well, about 10 days. It was rare for them to come here. She was prepared to bring Wenwen out to play and broaden her horizons. It would be even better if they could rent the flower beds. Since she was already here, she couldn't keep troubling Tian Tian to run around. Only 10 days. That's too rushed. Doesn't Wenwen only start school in September? Why don't you go back at the end of August? It depends. Fu Yunruo didn't insist. Not long after, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Then, a group of people served the dishes. Tian Tian saw the fatty in chef's clothes walking in front and stood up in surprise. Brother Fatty, why are you here? Fatty chuckled and said, it's rare for my peers to come and support me. Of course, I have to personally entertain you. Hello, Miss Yun Yun. I've heard a lot about you. Hello. Fu Yunruo stood up and shook hands with him. If you don't mind, you can call me Brother Fatty. Brother Fatty. Fu Yunruo didn't hesitate and called out generously. Sister Yun. Brother Fatty chuckled and said, Wenwen is also here. I specially stewed a fresh egg soup. I hope you like it. This fresh egg soup was not on the menu of the restaurant. His son liked to eat this very much. He only made it at home. Thank you, uncle. Wenwen thanked him politely. Fu Yunruo thanked him, thank you for your trouble. Let's add each other on WeChat. We can be considered colleagues. In the future, when you come to the capital to develop, let's keep in touch. Fu Yunruo didn't refuse. I won't disturb you anymore. Enjoy your meal. Fatty didn't stay for long. The dishes they ordered were served very quickly. Fu Yunruo and the others began to eat. Tian Tian said, Brother Fatty Ruo is quite a good person. He's loyal to his friends and has a gentle temper. When she worked at the platform company in the past, she didn't have much experience and couldn't come into contact with famous streamers. Later, she came to this restaurant by chance and learned that she was an employee of the platform company. She even gave her a 50% discount and spoke to her in a very friendly manner. She didn't put on any airs at all. Fu Yunruo nodded. If we want to develop here in the future, it's good to know more people in the same circle. After all, one more friend meant one more network. In the past, Fu Yunruo had been broadcasting in the mountain village and didn't show her face. She didn't have a deep relationship with the other big streamers on the platform. Now that she was in the capital, she naturally had to integrate into the capital circle. However, now was the time to enjoy delicious food, so Tian didn't talk much about work. Fu Yunruo took the first bite and her eyes lit up. As expected of a famous food streamer, the taste was superb. Wenwen also liked it very much. He took a bite of the stewed egg. It was fresh, tender, smooth, and melted in his mouth. It was the best he had ever eaten. Wenwen immediately scooped a spoonful and tried her best to stretch out her chubby little hand to Fu Yunruo's mouth. "Mommy, eat." Fu Yunruo leaned over and finished eating. "It's so delicious." Wenwen was happy. After the lively meal, Fu Yunruo went to pay the bill and was told that the boss had waived the bill. She was quite embarrassed that he had treated her to a meal when they had just met. However, it was the busiest time in the restaurant. The boss was busy in the kitchen. Fu Yunruo didn't want to disturb him at this time, so she transferred the money over to the WeChat account she had just added and then praised the food. Indeed, they all liked it very much. The 3 women and 1 child ate all the food on the table. All of them were full. After taking the car back, they didn't go up immediately. Instead, they strolled around the neighborhood for about an hour before going back. At 10:30 p.m., Brother Fatty sent a message. He said a lot, saying that she was being too polite by giving him money, and then refused to accept it. Fu Yunruo replied for a while, but in the end, she said that she couldn't win. "Brother Fatty, are you trying to chase us away? I don't dare to go next time. Feel free to come. There won't be a waiver next time. I'll give you a 50% discount. I'll do the same for my other friends." Seeing this, Fu Yunruo didn't say anything. Not long after, Fatty pulled Fu Yunruo into a group. There were only 13 people. As soon as she entered, many messages jumped out in the group. "Fatty, the person you want to see is here. Tao Tai, we've been friends for a long time. Lark, welcome, welcome." Fu Yunruo sent a message out, and it became even more lively. Fu Yunruo read their self-introductions. They were all well-known streamers on the platform. Some had already retired, and some were still active. Basically, they were all big streamers with tens of millions of fans. "Lark, why did Yun go to the capital? Come to my great Shanghai. We can play together." "Tao Tai, Yun is originally from the capital. Why don't you go to your place?" "CS, actually, it's good to come to my place. Why don't you consider it?" Fu Yunruo saw that their nicknames were more appropriate for her live broadcast content, so she also gave herself a nickname, Orchid. Then, she thanked them for their kindness and said that she would consider it. If she needed help, she would definitely ask them for help. Among the 13 people, 7 of them had already retired or semi-retired. Only 6 of them, including her, were popular anchors on the platform. They were scattered all over the country, and 3 of them even lived abroad. There were only 4 of them, including her, who were in the capital. Some people were also raising plants at this time. They just happened to have questions to ask her, and the others also sent a few pictures over. Fu Yunruo didn't expect that so many people were also raising flowers, and many of them were raising orchids. When it came to her profession, she had a lot to say. In the end, she found out that many of them fell into the pit after watching the pictures she took in the videos she made. In addition, they had time and space, so they bought a few pots of orchids to raise. As a result, the orchids they raised were not like that at all. They always felt that they were not as spiritual as Fu Yunruo's. In fact, they all admired Fu Yunruo very much. Just like the photos taken by the top photographers, the paintings drawn by the best painters, and the songs composed by the most famous musicians. They all had one thing in common, which was to inject soul into their works, so that people could resonate with them and feel the joy, anger, sorrow, and joy expressed in their works. The flowers raised by Fu Yunruo were like this. Perhaps it was because she poured all her energy and effort into them with love, so her flowers made people feel warm and happy when they looked at them. After Fu Yunruo became famous, she set off a craze for cloud plant cultivation. Many people wanted to copy her success, but no one did it like her. Some people's success was not accidental, but inevitable. Unknowingly, they chatted until midnight. Fu Yunruo rarely slept so late, and at this moment, she could not bear it anymore. After saying goodnight, she turned off her phone and fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. The next day, Tian brought them to look at the house and said, "Other than this house, I've looked at a few other houses, and they basically meet your requirements. But I think this one is the best, but if you don't like it, we can look at other houses." Although she said that, Tian actually hoped that she could directly decide on that villa. Because it was really too good. If she had the money, she would definitely buy it without hesitation. Compared to this house, the other houses had no advantage at all. The car stopped at the entrance of a very high-end neighborhood. A middle-aged man in a suit was already standing at the door. "Miss Tian, you're here." "Hello, Mr. Mo, sorry to keep you waiting. This is Miss Fu who wants to buy a house." "Hello, it's an honor to serve you." The few of them exchanged a few pleasantries, and the car quickly drove in. The entrance and exit of the neighborhood was very strict. Non-residents had to register, and only guests of the owner of the neighborhood were allowed to enter. This Mr. Mo was the agent of the owner who wanted to sell the house, so with him leading the way, they could only enter the neighborhood after registering. In Fu Yunruo's eyes, such a strict inspection gave her a good first impression. With such strict security, she did not have to worry too much about the child's safety. The neighborhood's greenery was done very well, and there were not many people walking around at this time. Moreover, she observed that the neighborhood was separated by people and cars. After the car drove into the neighborhood, they drove for a while before arriving at the house they wanted to see. This was a villa. There was a certain distance between each villa, but it was not too far apart. It allowed the residents to protect their privacy, but it was not to the extent that they did not have any contact with their neighbors. The 2.5-story villa had a garden, and the environment was beautiful. There were many places for children to play. Moreover, they were considered half-famous people, and they lived in such a private place. They were not worried about being disturbed. She was so lucky. Although it was not in the most prosperous circle in the capital, it was not far from the center. It was a quiet villa district with good security, and it was said that many famous people lived here. The price of this villa was not cheap. As the owner had settled down overseas, he had to deal with his domestic assets and was in a hurry to cash out, so the price was very cheap. If the owner did not know the boss of the platform and knew that she was looking for a house, so he contacted Tian and asked her to see if it was suitable, she would not have had this good opportunity. Fu Yunruo liked it when she saw the photo, but now that she saw it with her own eyes, she liked it even more. The renovation style was not fancy at all. It was simple and elegant. She did not need to modify it at all. 80% of the new expensive furniture came with the house, and it was completely free. There was even a small garden in the courtyard. The security guards in the neighborhood were said to be retired soldiers, so their safety was guaranteed. 5 kilometers away from the neighborhood, there was a kindergarten to middle school campus. She had checked. This school was top-notch in all aspects, and it completely met Fu Yunruo's needs. Moreover, the owner gave her a very discounted price because she was a friend of a friend. The only requirement was that she had to pay in full. Fu Yunruo's savings were just enough to buy a house, so she would have to live frugally for a period of time. Fu Yunruo originally wanted to buy a smaller house first. That way, she would use most of her money to rent a piece of land and build a new flower garden. If she bought this house with her money, her savings would basically be emptied. She would not be able to rent a piece of land and build a new flower garden. However, if she missed this opportunity, she might not have such a good opportunity in the future. Actually, if she lived in this villa, it would not be empty or deserted. After all, she wanted to bring Uncle Gua and Qian Xingnan here too. With 3 adults and a child here, it would not be deserted at all. She looked at this house and felt that it was very good. Wenwen ran up and down from the first floor to the second floor. He also liked this house very much. The best house he had lived in his previous life was not as good as this one. However, he knew that with his family's savings, it was still a little difficult. Fu Yunruo asked the members of the family, Wenwen, do you like this place? Wenwen hesitated for a moment but still nodded. He thought to himself that this price was already very cheap to be able to buy a villa here. In 20 years, the housing price would be 10 times the current price. Buying it now could be considered an investment. He did not know if he could ask Uncle Yuan if he had a job. He could go and earn money. Tian did not want Fu Yunruo to miss this opportunity. Ruo, if you don't have enough, I still have some savings here. However, she could not borrow much. After all, she had also bought a house and was paying off the loan. The pressure was greater. Fu Yunruo said, thank you, but there's no need. I have it. Seeing that Wenwen was looking at her expectantly, the other 2 people also nervously watched her make a decision. Fu Yunruo gritted her teeth and bought it. Chapter 59. Perhaps the employer was in a hurry, so the procedures were completed very quickly. As soon as Fu Yunruo agreed, Mr. Mo brought her around for 3 days to complete all the procedures. Fu Yunruo's savings were basically emptied and exchanged for a light property certificate. Although she was back to square one, Fu Yunruo's heart suddenly felt at ease when she looked at this small book. This was a house that completely belonged to her. This was her and Wenwen's home. Although the old house in Shanghe village and the house in the flower bed were where she lived and she treated them as her home, they were not her house after all. This book made her heart feel at ease. Wenwen Ruo was also very happy. To be able to buy such a villa in the capital where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. It was not easy. Mom, you're so awesome. Wenwen Ruo is also awesome. After buying it, this house was completely hers. The previous owner's things had already been moved away, so they could even move in directly. However, Fu Yunruo was not in a hurry to move in because she did not have the money to renovate and buy new furniture. She liked the renovation style very much. There was no need to make any major changes, but the bedside cabinets and wardrobes in the room had to be changed. The room she was going to sleep in had a bed that someone else had slept in, so it was not very good. Therefore, the furniture outside did not matter, but everything in the room had to be changed. Moreover, when Ruo was getting bigger and needed a separate room, which also needed to be renovated. After that, Fu Yunruo brought Wenwen Ruo to the studio. This was the first time Fu Yunruo saw the members of her studio. There were not many people, but Tian had good taste and the people she picked were all very outstanding. They liked and respected Fu Yunruo and Wenwen from the bottom of their hearts. Fu Yunruo also realized that a few of them were Wenwen's papa and mama fans. When Qi Weiqing knew that Fu Yunruo and her son had come to the capital, he quickly ran over to meet them and even scolded them, "Why didn't you tell me that you came to the capital?" If he was not well informed, Qi Weiqing Ruo would not have known that they had left. Fu Yunruo smiled and said, "We will leave after a few days. Wouldn't it be troublesome for you if I had to tell you? We're family, what's there to be troublesome?" This was his teacher's favorite junior. If he did not take good care of her, his teacher would not let him enter the door next time. When Chi Weiqing Ruo and when, he asked where they were going. "We're going to the suburbs to look at a place." Ruo Fu. As for Wen, the little girl was not willing to let others take her to play. She was determined to follow Fu Yunruo. There was no other way but to take her along. What Uncle Gua can't bear to part with the most are those precious orchids. "I'll build a new flower garden here. Uncle Guo will just change the place to grow flowers. He should be willing to come." This was Fu Yunruo's true thoughts. On one hand, she wanted to have her own career. On the other hand, if she wanted Uncle Gua to follow her to the capital, she had to solve his worries. Then, she could act coquettishly and beg him. She did not believe that his attitude would not soften. When Chi Weiqing heard Fu Yunruo's plan, his eyes lit up. Will teacher be willing to come? They had coaxed their teacher for a long time, but he was not willing to come out. Would he really change his mind? I'll try to get him to agree. Fu Yunruo did not have much confidence. If Uncle Gua was still unwilling in the end, then she could only try her best to bring Wen back to see him every year. "It's not that I want to criticize you, Yunruo, but aren't you treating us as outsiders? If you want to talk about where to transfer the flower garden or a suitable place, the seniors and juniors in this industry have the most connections." Fu Yunruo could only smile. "I'll ask Tian for help." Tian was her manager and a good sister. It was only right to ask her for help. She did not have the personality to cause trouble for others. In the end, Chi Weiqing went with them to look at the place. Unfortunately, the results were not satisfactory. Not to mention that it was far from the house they bought, the place was not as big as Fu Yunruo wanted. They could only return in disappointment. "It's okay. I've already contacted the seniors and asked them to help you ask if there are any suitable places. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Chi." Actually, Fu Yunruo did not have the money to rent a place, but since she was here, she might as well understand the market. If she was really so lucky, she could use that house as collateral to get a loan from the bank. Moreover, she still had a job and could continue to earn money. She had just accepted an endorsement job a few days ago. A client came to her door and asked her to represent a clothing brand that was close to the people. Yishang was a domestic brand. It was famous for its high quality, comfort, and simple and fashionable design. However, as everyone knew, foreign brands were more popular in the country. Fu Yunruo was a loyal fan of this brand. The price was not as expensive as the foreign brands, but the comfort and style were not inferior. It was probably because she was wearing the Yishang brand when she showed her face recently, so the person in charge of the brand looked for her to endorse. Fu Yunruo agreed without much consideration. However, she had just signed the contract and had not officially started the promotion. Soon, the endorsement fees would be transferred to her account. When that time came, she would not be so tight on money. Fu Yunruo and the others did not stay in the capital for long before they returned to Shanghe village. This time, they did not see Siyu and Yuan Xan in the capital. However, the internet was full of news about Siyu. His support videos were displayed on the big screens in the big city squares. One of his movies was nominated for the Triennial International Film Festival. He was brought abroad by the director to promote the movie. After Fu Yunruo told Wen about this, he was sensible enough not to make a fuss about wanting to see Siyu. The journey back took almost 3 days. The main reason was that there was no direct bus and they had to take turns. After they got off the plane, they had to take a few buses. It would be more convenient if they had a car. It would be great if there was an airport near the village or even in the city. When they reached home, they were all exhausted. Not long after, people in the village came in and out. Everyone was curious to ask if Rollercoasters was really leaving. Actually, the villagers knew that Rollercoasters and her son would leave this small village sooner or later. However, when the day came, everyone was quite reluctant to part with them. After interacting with each other for a few years, they all treated Rollercoasters and her son as villagers. Moreover, they had watched Wen grow from a newborn monkey to such an adorable child. When they thought about how they would not have such a fair and adorable child calling them uncle and aunt in a childish voice in the future, they were even more reluctant to part with them. When the children heard the news, it was like a bolt from the blue. They could not believe it. Their Wen was going to leave the village and go somewhere far, far away. They all surrounded Rollercoasters' courtyard and looked at Wen eagerly. If Rollercoasters did not care about this group of children, she believed that Wen would be able to appease his little friends. The packages sent from the capital had also arrived and were piled up in the living room. Rollercoasters and Qian Xingnan opened the packages together and separated the gifts. After Rollercoasters bought the house, she did not have any cash on hand. The remaining money was not enough to buy gifts for the villagers. Recently, with Wen's consent, she finally used the money that Wen earned. She gave everyone in the village, including the cats and dogs, a gift as a way of thanking them for taking care of her and her son all these years. The days passed peacefully. Rollercoasters lived a normal life, and Wen played with his little friends as much as possible. At the end of August, Wen heard Rollercoasters' idea and was immediately struck by lightning. Go to kindergarten. Wen had already heard from Rollercoasters that he should go to school more than once, but he had never seen her take action, so he did not take it to heart. Wen's eyes darted around, and then he said softly, I don't want to go to kindergarten. I want to spend more time with Grandpa May and Grandma May, as well as Zhuang and the rest. Wen grabbed Rollercoasters' hand and shook it coquettishly. Mommy, okay. Wen thought to himself that he would not go to such a childish kindergarten with a little brat. With his knowledge, he could at least go to the 5th grade of primary school. Mommy, I'm still young. I'm still a baby, Rollercoasters was amused. Then, she straightened her face and said seriously, didn't you call yourself a little adult? You're already a 4-year-old baby. It's time for you to go to kindergarten. Wen said, I'm not 4 years old yet. I'm still 6 months away. He raised his 6 chubby little fingers seriously. Little smart boy. Rollercoasters did not say whether she agreed or not. She did not expect Wen to learn anything in kindergarten. Her original intention was to let him get used to it for a semester first. He might be more used to it after he went to kindergarten in the capital. Since he rejected it and did not want to go, Rollercoasters did not force him. After all, he was still too young. He should be more sensible after the new year. Moreover, Wen's words softened her heart. Not to mention him, even she herself basically returned to the village every day to live and rushed to the flower garden the next day. Rollercoasters went to chat with Aunt May at night. She noticed that Uncle May left early and returned late all day. When he came back, he was all smiles. Rollercoasters asked curiously, is something good happening? It should be some policy from the higher-ups. The old man is so mysterious all day. That donation. Rollercoasters immediately thought of this. Otherwise, why would Uncle Guo go out for meetings all day? I think so. However, Rollercoasters and Aunt May guessed wrong. It turned out that an inspection team had taken a fancy to the beautiful mountains, clear waters, and good air here. They wanted to invest in building a retirement resort here. This district was not small. It covered at least the area of a few towns. This investment was not small. It had alarmed the higher-ups. It could be said that this was a charitable investment that did not care about returns. If it was successful in the end, it could be said that it would spur the development of the local brokerage firm. The local leadership had been worrying about how to develop the economy so that the local residents could escape poverty. However, the geographical location of some places was really not good. They were far away from the city and lived in the mountains. Transportation was not convenient, and there were no energy resources to attract investment. This time, it was one of the top financial groups in the world whose main forces were overseas that had invested a lot to repay the country. Naturally, the higher-ups gave the green light. The higher-ups also decided to build an airport here to cooperate with the development of this place into a future tourist resort. This was a great thing for the local residents. Ever since the news came out, the price of the land here had been rising. The villagers' favorite thing to do now was to gather together and discuss when they had nothing to do. They had lived here for their entire lives, and only then did they know that they lived in a place with good feng shui. When they heard the outside world praising this place for being so good, they all felt honored. Fu Yunruo was also very happy. If an airport was really built in the future, it would be convenient for them to travel back and forth. Everyone would also be better off. Chapter 60. The Spring Festival had just ended, and the aftertaste of the Spring Festival had yet to dissipate. Fu Yunruo, Wenwen, Uncle Gua, and Qian Xingnan had already stepped onto the soil of the capital. Be careful. If you break my flowers, you won't be able to afford it even if you sell yourself. Uncle Gua stood in front of the entrance of a flower bed with his hands on his hips. He was in high spirits. When he saw a porter with rough hands and feet, he frowned. The employees carefully moved the utensils. Fu Yunruo comforted them softly inside and directed them where to place the things. In the chaotic environment, a childish voice was giving out orders in a serious manner. A chubby girl dressed in round clothes stood on a chair at the side. Her entire body was wrapped tightly, and she wore a furry hat on her head, which made her look even cuter. The weather in the capital was extremely cold. The snow outside had not melted yet, and white mist would come out when one breathed out. However, everyone was busy at the moment, so they did not feel cold. These employees who were hired to move expensive flowers and plants were also happily listening to Wenwen's instructions. Fu Yunruo occasionally glanced at him. As long as Wenwen stood in a conspicuous place obediently and did not run around, Fu Yunruo did not care whether he caused trouble or not. Seeing that Wenwen was so energetic at the moment, her heart relaxed a little. When they left, almost the entire village came to send them off. There were dozens of children of all ages, and their cries were earth-shattering. They could not bear to let Wenwen go. Wenwen had been mentally preparing for half a year. She originally thought that she would not cry childishly on this day, but in the end, she cried as softly as the other children. Her tears were worthless. Fu Yunruo was also crying sadly at first. Later, she was busy coaxing the child and forgot about the sadness of parting. Her ears seemed to still be ringing with the sound of the endless cries. Qi Weiqing had helped her find this flower bed. She did not expect Qi Weiqing to be so attentive. In October, he suddenly called her to tell her that he had found 3 places that met the requirements and asked her to come to the capital to take a look when she was free. She hurried over and finally chose a large flower bed between the 3. It was a 40-minute drive from the villa. This piece of land was originally used to grow and sell flowers, but it was not well managed, so they wanted to sell it. The transfer fee and all the potted plants in the flower bed were not cheap. In the end, under the company of Qi Weiqing, she got a loan from the bank and took it over. She even signed a 10-year lease. After the two most important matters in the imperial capital were settled, Fu Yunruo and Wenwen recited scriptures in front of Uncle Guo all day long until he was impatient. He agreed in a gruff voice. If Fu Yun decided to leave together after the new year, she would have to take care of both sides. Tian personally watched over the renovation of the house and the rearrangement of the flower beds and sent videos to her every day. Occasionally, she would travel thousands of miles to personally direct them. She was still worried about Lan Chao and her child. She wanted to spend more time with Aunt May and the others. She ran back and forth a few times in a short period of time. She had visibly lost weight, but her eyes were brighter and more energetic. Every time she came back, Aunt May would make a lot of food for her to eat, but she could not make up for it. She would even scold her for working so hard. Fu Yunruo did not expect it to be so rushed. She thought that she could take it slow in half a year. She did not expect that it would be a little difficult to do it in half a year. If it were not for the help of the entire studio and Qi Weiqing occasionally helping, she would not be able to handle it. But it was all in the past now. The group of them left the village. At the same time, the Lan Chao in Uncle Guo's flower bed also left. The precious Lan Chao was delicate. Uncle Guo called a team of professionals to transport it. They took the special route and arrived in the imperial capital at the same time as them. After arriving, they did not even go to the villa. They directly came to the flower bed to settle the Lan Chao first. Qi Weiqing came to help eagerly. Yunruo, thank you so much. Qi Weiqing looked at the energetic teacher at the door and said softly. The teacher had no children in his life. His students had always wanted to bring the teacher out and take care of him in his old age. But the teacher was stubborn. He had always stayed in his hometown and refused to come out. His hometown was remote and inconvenient. They could not leave their work in the city and could only take turns to visit him. But now, it was all good. Everyone was in the imperial capital. Even if some were not in the imperial capital, it was convenient for them to visit the teacher. They were very grateful to Fu Yunruo. Therefore, even if they were in their 40s and were elites in their respective industries, they still happily helped to transport the Lan Chao even if they were being scolded. It's my duty. Fu Yunruo felt that this was her responsibility and obligation. She did not feel that she needed to be thanked. I said the wrong thing. Qi Weiqing smiled. Little junior sister, don't be angry. Uncle Guo saw that Qi Weiqing was actually slacking off and immediately shouted, What are you chattering about? Can't you see that we are busy? Coming. Qi Weiqing quickly walked over. Fu Yunruo smiled and continued to help to arrange the Lan Chao. Although there were many things and it was messy, there was strength in numbers. 2 hours later, the empty and desolate flower bed was orderly and full of vitality. The flower bed was much bigger than the one in her hometown. The flower bed was separated into 2 parts. One part was private property and no one was allowed to enter or leave. The other part was open to the public. After all, the annual rent in the imperial capital was not cheap. She had to develop other businesses. Since they were raising flowers, they could sell them or contract some flower rental business. There were 2 sets of security systems installed in the flower bed. One was at the outermost part and the other was at the inner part of the flower bed. The one at the flower bed was the most advanced security system. Of course, she did not have so much money to buy so many things. It was Uncle Guo who gave her a card and took out his own money. He told her that if she wanted to do it, she should do it to the best of her ability. Fu Yunruo finally accepted the card and took the corresponding shares according to the proportion of Uncle Guo's investment. After signing a contract, if there were profits in the future, she would receive dividends according to the contract. Of course, the expensive orchids that Uncle Guo was raising were still Uncle Guo's. Uncle Guo looked around with his hands behind his back and nodded in satisfaction. And, not bad. Wen had unknowingly gotten down from her chair and followed behind Uncle Guo with her hands behind her back. She walked with her short legs and looked around from time to time before nodding. Not bad, not bad. Her small clothes were bulging. Her little chubby hands could not be behind her back and were pinned to her sides. She walked a little shakily like a little penguin. People could not help but laugh when they saw her. After everything was tidied up, Uncle Guo bluntly asked them to leave. Fu Yunruo hurriedly smiled at her senior brothers and sisters. Let's gather again when we're free another day. The others agreed. We haven't been so complete in more than 10 years. We should gather. When you're done here, there's no hurry. If you need help, just let me know. Don't stand on ceremony. Fu Yunruo smiled and sent them off. She was really too busy today. She was almost done tidying up here, but she had not started tidying up the villa. Fu Yunruo settled the wages of the movers and left quickly. Shi Weiqing shamelessly stayed behind. Uncle Guo looked at the small second floor not far away and said, I'll stay here. Other than the fact that this flower bed was a little bigger, it was roughly the same as the one at home, so Uncle Guo was not uncomfortable. Fu Yunruo saw that Uncle Guo looked like he was going to stay here for a long time, so she immediately rejected him. That won't do. There was a small 2-story red brick house near the flower shed. It was left behind from before. Fu Yunruo had seen it before. Everything was complete. There were 3 rooms upstairs. There was a room downstairs, a living room, a kitchen, and so on. Such a large flower bed still needed someone to take care of it. Fu Yunruo decided that the 2 rooms upstairs would be Uncle Guo's. She and Wen would share one room, and 2 employees would be hired to take care of the other 2 rooms. Fu Yunruo did not want Uncle Guo to stay here for a long time. She wanted him to stay in the villa with them so that it would be convenient for him to take care of her. Anyway, she often came back, so they could stay together. It was better to leave a room just in case. When the children were on vacation, they could stay here for 2 days. Uncle Guo snorted coldly. He was a little dissatisfied, but when he saw Fu Yunruo's expression, he did not say anything else. The group of people took a car to the villa. They got out of the car, and the main door was wide open. There were countless luggage bags and bags in the hall on the first floor. A broken home was worth thousands of coins. They packed up the things in the house and realized that they could not bear to give this away. It was full of memories. In the end, they reduced it again and again. What was left were the things that they could not bear to give away the most. The rest were given to the adults and children in the village. However, there were still so many things. Ruo, you're back. Tian said. She did not go to the flower bed. Instead, she came directly to the villa to take care of the checked luggage. I didn't know how you were going to pack, so I didn't dare to move. It's okay. There was a heater in the house, and the temperature was much higher than outside. Fu Yunruo felt hot after standing for a while, so she took off her coat. Seeing that Wen's cheeks were steaming hot, she took off his coat and hat and told him not to go outside. Wen responded. Then, with his sharp eyes, he saw the small luggage bag that he had packed and quickly ran over to pick it up. This was his. He packed it. They were just about to pack all the luggage in the hall when they heard the doorbell ring. Fu Yunruo was puzzled. They had never lived here before, so they should not know any neighbors. Why would someone come to look for them now? She was about to go out and take a look when Wen shouted, "Mom, put on your coat." Got it. Little housekeeper. Fu Yunruo quickly put on her coat and walked out. Wen sighed. His mother was really too worrisome sometimes. Chapter 61. Fu Yunruo walked out and saw a tall man standing at the entrance of the main entrance. His black windbreaker was blowing in the wind and swaying gently. Mr. Yu. Fu Yun could not hide her surprise when she saw who it was. Yu. Why was he here? Could it be that he heard that they had moved to the capital and specially came to visit? But she did not hear the security department inform her. Before she could ask, Siyu said, I saw your figures just now. I thought I was mistaken, so I came to take a look. I didn't expect it to be you. Don't tell me you live here too. Fu Yun was even more surprised. She had been to the villa several times and occasionally saw the residents in the neighborhood, but she had never seen Siyu. Siyu pointed to the villa next door. That's where I live. That's really a coincidence, you moved here. Siyu looked inside. It's really a coincidence. Yes. Ever since Siyu left the village, they rarely contacted each other. Fu Yun saw his news on the internet and knew that he spent most of his time abroad and seemed to be very busy. Even Yuan Axeon was so busy that he could not care about Wen, so she did not let Wen disturb them. Fortunately, Wen was also sensible. After Fu Yun explained, she did not often talk about contacting Siyu. Only when she received a gift from Siyu on Wen's 4th birthday did she know that he still missed Wen. Fu Yun reacted and quickly turned to the side. Come in and sit. She brought Siyu into the house. When Wen saw Siyu, she had a big reaction. She immediately threw her luggage aside and ran over with her short legs. She hugged Siyu's thigh. Uncle Yu. Uncle Yu, I missed you so much. Why did you only come to find me now? Uncle misses Wen too. Siyu was in a good mood when he saw that Wen still remembered him. He bent down and picked up the child. Feeling his sturdy weight, he pinched his rounder cheeks with one hand. Wen, you've gained weight. Siyu shook her head. Yes, she's really well nourished. Wen, who was originally overjoyed and excited, he twisted his chubby little buttocks and struggled to get up from the ground. He bounced over to Fu Yunruo's side, his round little back view nudging Siyu. Humph, he was angry. She called him fat the moment they met. Did he not want to lose face? Besides, he wasn't fat. It was because he had worn too many clothes. He will lose weight in the summer. Fu Yun face-bombed. Mr. Yu was really something else. What was Wen taboo about? Why did he have to bump into her? However, Fu Yunruo rarely interfered with Wen's interactions with others, so she didn't say anything. Siyu smiled, then greeted Uncle Gua and the others. When Chi Weiqing heard Siyu say that he lived here, he was puzzled. He remembered that Siyu didn't live here. However, when he thought about how Siyu had been famous for so many years, it was normal for him to buy a few properties. It was also normal for him to take turns living here. Uncle Gua snorted at Siyu and said to Chi Weiqing in a rough voice, "Hurry up and pack up." Chi Weiqing smiled apologetically at Siyu, then hurriedly carried Uncle Gua's luggage into his room. Fu Yunruo poured a glass of water for Siyu and cleared out a spot on the sofa for him to sit. She said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I just moved in, so it's a little messy. It's my fault for causing trouble for you." Siyu looked at Wen, who had been following Fu Yunruo around. The little girl was obviously still angry. She faced him with the back of her head, but her little eyes secretly glanced at him from time to time. Although Siyu hadn't contacted them for almost half a year, he was busy until late at night. When he took a breather and rested, someone would report to him about their movements. Siyu had participated in a variety show for a period of time, so he didn't manage much of the company's affairs. There was a huge backlog of work, and there were also a lot of things to do in the entertainment industry. Later on, there were some internal problems, so he went abroad to deal with it personally. Before he could take a breather, it was the busiest time of the year. He was so busy that he had to work overtime in the middle of the night. After the new year, he finally settled everything and could stand here. Siyu coaxed Wen in a gentle voice. Wen is not fat at all. I was wrong. Wen, please forgive me. When Wen heard Siyu's apology, she climbed down the ladder and said generously, "It's okay. I forgive you." Okay. As an apology, I'll help Wen pack your luggage, okay? Wen's eyes lit up when he heard this. He nodded continuously. Okay. He welcomed free labor. Wen immediately pulled Siyu towards the huge pile of luggage. Uncle Yu, these are my things. Fu Yunruo was speechless. Wen was really too insensible. How could he let his guest do things? He had to teach him a lesson when there was no one else around. Wen proudly directed Siyu to move the luggage. To do things, Siyu took off his windbreaker and suit jacket, revealing a slim waistcoat and well-ironed trousers. Fu Yunruo couldn't help but take a few more glances and admire him. Mr. Yu was really a very charming man. He didn't know what kind of perfect woman could stand by his side. Fu Yunruo and Wen's rooms were on the second floor. Uncle Guo's room was on the first floor. Qian Xingnan's room was also on the first floor. The villa had 2.5 floors. There were 3 rooms on the first floor and 3 rooms on the second floor. As there were many people in the house, Fu Yunruo converted the piano room and gym on the first floor into bedrooms. The study on the second floor was still intact. There was also a leisure area for the children to play in. Wen carried his small luggage and ran upstairs. He pushed open the door to a room, and the interior design with a sky blue theme suddenly appeared before his eyes. There was a beige wardrobe, matching children's books, tables, and chairs. The large bed against the wall was covered with a quilt cover with a blue sky and white clouds pattern. There was a photo frame on the bedside table. It was a photo of Wen and Fu Yunruo. It was the same on the study table. There were several photo frames in an orderly manner. There were photos of Wen when he was 1 month old, 1 year old, and 2 years old. There were sky blue curtains hanging on the bright windows. When he opened the curtains and looked out, he could see the beautiful scenery in the courtyard. This was a children's room, but it wasn't childish at all. Wen was immediately pleasantly surprised. His eyes sparkled, and he felt that everything about this room was to his liking. Wen turned and ran out. Fu Yunruo happened to come up with a suitcase. Wen immediately ran over and pulled her hand to the room. Mom, did you decorate this room for me? Fu Yunruo smiled. Yes, baby, do you like it? Yes. In order to prove that he liked it very much, he nodded heavily. I love Mom the most. Mom also loves baby the most. Fu Yunruo saw Wen's happy smile and felt that she had been affirmed. She was also very happy. All the hard work she had put in previously was worth it. Fu Yunruo looked up and saw Siyu standing in front of the study table. He was holding a photo frame and looking at it. Noticing the movements of the mother and son, he casually put it back and smiled slightly. Wen was really cute when he was young. Of course. Wen said proudly. From the moment he was born, he was the most beautiful child in the village. Yes, in the future, he would be the most beautiful child in the entire capital. Fu Yunruo was even happier than being praised. Siyut saw that Fu Yunruo still wanted to move the luggage, so he said, "Leave this to me. Wenwen's room still needs to be tidied up, right? You can stay in the room and tidy it up. It'll be faster if we split up the work." Siyut pointed at the 2 luggage bags that he had brought up. Fu Yunruo thought about it and felt that it made sense. She stayed in Wenwen's room first and prepared to put the things away. Wenwen had a lot of clothes. Most of the clothes that she could not wear were given to the children in the village. She only kept some that she could not bear to give away, such as the sweater, shoes, and hats that Auntie May had personally knitted. She wanted to keep them for her collection. The rest were the clothes that she needed to wear now. There were quite a lot of clothes. Just the winter clothes alone took up 3 big bags. Fu Yunruo tidied up the clothes and hung them in the wardrobe. Fortunately, the wardrobe was very big. She specially chose a bigger wardrobe and hung the clothes that needed to be hung up. She folded the clothes that needed to be folded and put them away. This tidying up took a lot of time. Siyu had already gone up and down several times and moved the things from the first floor to the second floor. Fu Yunruo tidied up Wenwen's clothes and placed some of his toys on the bookshelf. She also placed some children's books. In a short while, the somewhat empty house was decorated with a lively atmosphere. As soon as Fu Yunruo walked out, the corridor on the second floor was already filled with luggage. She was shocked. Siyu said, "I don't know where you want to put these things. They've all been moved up." The things were all wrapped up properly. Siyu Ruo did not know what they were and did not open them to take a look. Qian Xingnan and Tian Tian had also finished tidying up and walked up at this moment. Fu Yunruo said, "Move these into my room." As the person who had personally tidied up the things, Fu Yunruo had a rough idea of what was inside. She carried a bag into the master bedroom. Qian Xingnan did not say anything and immediately moved the other luggage into Fu Yunruo's room. Siyu could not enter Fu Yunruo's room, so he did not interfere. He pointed to a luggage bag by his feet and asked, "Where do you want to move this?" Wenwen casually looked at it. He remembered that this bag was filled with his things, and they were. Wenwen's eyes darted around. "There's no need for these. Uncle Yu, help me put them in the storage room." There was a storage room in the backyard for miscellaneous items. Siyu saw Wenwen's eyes darting around and knew that there was something fishy going on. He was curious about the things inside and picked up the luggage. His hand accidentally touched the zipper, and it opened with a whoosh. A thick photo album fell out. "I dropped it." Siyu put down the bag and picked up the photo album. Wenwen saw that Siyu seemed to want to open it to take a look and immediately panicked. "Don't look." Siyu saw Wenwen's nervous expression and became even more curious. Hence, he opened it to take a look. Wenwen stood in front of Siyu and jumped with all her might. She shouted fiercely, "Give it back to me. Don't look." Wenwen jumped for a long time but could only jump as high as Siyu's waist. Her small arms and legs could not reach the height of the photo album at all. She might as well go all the way. She pounced on Siyu and started climbing up his pants. Fortunately, Siyu's pants were of good quality and he was wearing a belt today, so he did not have to worry about them being pulled down. Siyu stared at the photo album for a long time and could not take his eyes off it. Then, he looked at Wenwen, who was climbing up like a tree trunk. Siyu sighed. It's good to have a daughter. She was soft and cute. She wore a pink dress and looked like a beautiful little princess. Wenwen was speechless. Chapter 62. Was he mocking him? Wenwen was struck by lightning. He couldn't believe it. Not only did he peek at his dark history, he even mocked him for looking like a girl. Fu Yunruo heard the commotion and walked out. When she saw Wenwen and Mr. Yu, she asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Wenwen climbed down and turned to run towards Fu Yunruo. However, before he could run, he was grabbed by the back of his collar. His entire body was suspended in the air. His short legs alternated a few times as he ran on the spot. Siyu carried Wenwen and smiled at Fu Yunruo. "It's nothing. We're just playing." Fu Yunruo glanced at Wenwen. Seeing that he was angry but did not refute, she smiled and returned to her room to continue tidying up. When they were gone, Siyu said to Wenwen, "Little tattletale. It's not manly to look for your mother every time you have a problem." Wenwen said righteously, "I'm still young. It was normal to look for one's mother if there was a problem." Siyu looked at the big bag with the zipper open with interest, as if he wanted to see what else was inside. Wenwen. He quickly rushed over and pressed his small body against the opening. "Don't look!" he shouted fiercely. His mother was too much. She could have thrown these things away, but she still brought them all over. One day, he would secretly throw them away. If they were all photos of the little guy, Siyu wanted to continue looking. He even thought that with such a big bag, he could give a part of it to him for collection in the future. Fu Yunruo didn't stay in the room for long. She wanted to tidy up the study room and other areas outside first before tidying up her own room slowly. After she came out, she quickly found out the reason for Wenwen and Siyu's battle of wits and courage. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. However, for the sake of the little kid's face, she pretended not to know. Otherwise, she couldn't bear to see the little kid cry and throw them away. These were all memories that were worth treasuring. Fu Yun kept a portion of the photos on the bookshelf in her room, and the rest were placed on the tall bookshelf in the study room. The thick photo albums were neatly arranged. If he hadn't brought a ladder, even Siyu wouldn't have been able to reach those items. Wenwen was satisfied. Although it was not in the warehouse, it was almost the same as being in the warehouse. Unless one went to look for it, it would be dusty. Unknowingly, he was busy all the way until night fell before he finally finished packing up. The large living room was restored to its original tidiness and cleanliness. The originally spacious house instantly became warm and full of life. Fu Yun and the others were so tired that they did not want to move at all. They did not manage to buy any groceries either, so they ordered takeout. Although it was takeout, it was recommended by Siyu. It was affordable and tasted good. Everyone, who had been so tired that they didn't have much of an appetite, finished the entire table of takeout food. After that, everyone did not stay for long. After Fu Yun repeatedly thanked them, they all took their leave. Siyu's house was next door, so he stayed for the last. Uncle Guo was old after all. He had rushed for 3 days and had been busy the entire day. Although he had been directing people, at this moment, he could not take it anymore and went back to his room to rest. Wenwen, who had one-sidedly thrown a tantrum twice, stuck to Siyu's side at this moment. It was unknown what Siyu said, but she laughed heartily. When Wenwen saw Fu Yun, she hurriedly asked her to come over and wait for Fu Yun to sit on the sofa in the other direction. Fu Yun was free at this moment. "I haven't congratulated you on winning the International Best Actor Award." "Congratulations." At the Triennial International Film Festival before the new year, Siyu's movie was very popular and brought home many trophies. It was trending online for an entire week. Siyu's fame rose to another level and no one could shake it. Although it was late to congratulate him, Fu Yun still felt that he should congratulate him personally. "Thank you. Uncle Yu, you're so amazing." Wenwen's eyes were sparkling. He looked up at Siyu and said with ambition, "One day, I will surpass you." "That's right. His goal in this life was not to reach Siyu's height, but to surpass him. Oh, this little guy was small, but he was ambitious. Siyu patted his little head and encouraged him. Good luck. Siyu did not stay for long. When he saw the tiredness on Fu Yun's face that could not be concealed, he stood up and said, I should go back too. Have a good rest. Fu Yun nodded and sent Siyu to the door. After watching him leave, she closed the door and turned to go back into the house. When Fu Yun returned to the house, Wen was sitting on the sofa. Perhaps because the environment was quiet, she could not help but doze off, her little head nodding off. Fu Yun carried her up and walked upstairs. Mom. Wen was in a daze. She hugged her shoulders with both hands and fell asleep in a short while. After being excited the whole day, she was indeed tired. Fu Yun originally wanted to carry her to his new room, but thinking that this was his first day living in a new house, she was afraid that he would not be used to it. If he woke up in the middle of the night and did not have a familiar person by his side, he would be frightened. Thus, she carried him to her room. Fu Yun was also very tired. She hurriedly washed up, lay on the bed, and fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. On the first night of officially settling down in the capital, everyone slept very soundly. It was rare that everyone even woke up late. When Fu Yun woke up, it was already past 9 o'clock. She still felt very tired and did not want to get up. However, after struggling for a while, she still got out of bed. Wen's cheeks were red from sleeping, and her small snoring was long. It was obvious that she was still sleeping soundly. Fu Yun did not wake her up. After washing up and changing her clothes, she yawned and walked downstairs. Qian Xingnan was already awake. When she saw Fu Yun coming downstairs, she greeted her. There's breakfast in the kitchen. As she did not know when they would wake up, Qian Xingnan put the breakfast on plates and bowls to keep it warm. Fu Yun opened the lid. After the heat dissipated, she saw that there were steamed buns, fried dough sticks, porridge, and soy milk. Thank you for your hard work. Fu Yun thought that Qian Xingnan had gone out to buy breakfast early in the morning, but she did not expect her to say, Mr. Siyu sent it over. Fu Yun. Fu Yun, who had just poured a bowl of soy milk and drank 2 mouthfuls, almost choked. Qian Xingnan looked over in confusion. What's wrong? Can't I accept it? In Qian Xingnan's impression, Mr. Siyu and Fu Yun were very close. Since they were so close, it should be fine to accept breakfast, right? Fu Yun thought for a moment and said, we'll make our own breakfast in the future. Fu Yun said it more tactfully. She did not know if Qian Xingnan understood what she meant, so she nodded. After a while, Uncle Guo also woke up. He walked into the kitchen with his hands behind his back. What's there to eat? He glanced into the pot. I want to eat porridge and steamed buns. Then, he walked out with his hands behind his back. Fu Yun thought for a moment. It was not good to return now, so she might as well accept Siyu's kindness. Then, she left some of Wen's breakfast in the pot and took the rest out with Qian Xingnan. Xingnan, have you eaten? Qian Xingnan shook her head. No. Her employer had not eaten yet. How could she eat first? No wonder there was so much left. If we don't eat in time, you can eat first, Fu Yun said. Qian Xingnan agreed. The 3 of them sat down and ate breakfast together. Fu Yun went up to look at Wen and shouted a few times. The little pig groaned and did not want to wake up, so she simply let him be and asked Qian Xingnan to keep an eye on the movements upstairs. She went to the greenhouse in the courtyard. There was a greenhouse in the courtyard that had been left behind by the previous owner. She had rearranged it and the 11 orchids that she had raised were all here. Originally, Fu Yun wanted to let Uncle Gua take care of this greenhouse and put his precious orchids. However, he felt that this place was not big enough and could not let him take care of so many orchids, so he was unwilling. Fu Yun could only put her own orchids and raise some other potted plants. She thought that this would work too. In the future, after Wenwen sent her to school every day, she would come back to live stream. She would wait outside for the rush hour before driving to the flower nursery. The flower nursery was not in a hurry to open for business in the morning. It usually opened after 10 o'clock. When she came back at night, it would be convenient for her to live stream for a while. Although the flower nursery was not too far away, it was not as convenient as the courtyard. Fu Yun was not free today. In addition, she had taken 5 days off, so she did not live stream. After tidying up the greenhouse a little, she quickly came out. Uncle Guo walked around the courtyard a few times. Soon, he could not stay any longer and wanted to go to the flower nursery. He would not be used to not looking at his precious orchids for a day. Wenwen was not awake yet, so she could not leave yet. In the end, she asked Qian Xingnan to drive Uncle Guo over while she stayed at home. Fu Yun's room had not been completely tidied up, so she simply tidied up the things in the room. The master bedroom was designed to be very spacious. In addition to the bedroom, there was also a bathroom, a lounge, and a cloakroom. Fu Yun did not make too many changes. She only changed the lounge into her own office. The study outside would mainly be used by Wenwen in the future. She had prepared for a rainy day. Wenwen woke up from hunger. He sat up sleepily and rubbed his eyes with his chubby hands. Mom, then, he opened his eyes and looked around. Fu Yun heard the commotion and walked out. When she saw that Wenwen was awake, she teased, "Little sleeping pig is finally awake." She walked over to pick up Wenwen's clothes and helped him put them on. Wenwen cooperated while protesting, "I'm not a pig." Actually, he knew how to put on clothes a long time ago, but winter clothes were too difficult to wear. They were thick and many. He would lose his balance and fall backward when wearing pants, so he could only ask his mother to help him. However, he could wear summer clothes himself. After putting on his clothes, Wenwen was already very awake. He jumped out of bed and ran to wash up. Then, he ran out of bed and touched his round belly through his clothes as he said, "Mom, I'm so hungry." Fu Yun took out the breakfast that she had left for him and placed it in front of him. She said, "Who asked you to stay in bed and refuse to get up? You must be hungry, right?" Wenwen giggled and shook his short legs. Wenwen smelled the fragrant breakfast and felt that he could eat it all. "Mom, where's Grandpa Gua and the rest?" Wenwen was almost done eating. Only then did he notice that the house was very quiet and that he did not see anyone else. They went to the flower garden. When Wenwen heard this, his eyes lit up. He jumped off the high chair and ran to Fu Yun. "I want to go too." "There's no car." Fu Yun only had one car under her name. Usually, Qian Xingnan was in charge of driving. She rarely drove by herself. When Wen's eyes darted around. "We can take our own car." Wen was eager to try. Fu Yun hesitated and did not immediately agree. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Wen immediately ran out happily. "It's Uncle Yu." Fu Yun walked past unhurriedly. She remembered that this was a high-tech villa. She looked at the screen on the wall by the door. The visitor was indeed Yu. Fu Yun walked out. Wenwen leaned against the door and tried to tiptoe to open it. His short hands could touch the door lock, but he was too short to open the door. Fu Yun went over to open the door. Wenwen immediately pounced on him. "Uncle Yu." Siyu carried Wen and then looked at Fu Yun. The corners of his lips curled into a perfect smile. His eyes were deep and filled with a smile. Morning. Fu Yun was in a daze. Morning. Siyu carried Wen into the house. Fu Yun closed the door and followed behind. She felt that Mr. Yu was a little different from before. She couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different, but she felt that he seemed to be more charming. It was just, quite seductive. Fu Yun was in a daze for a moment. When she came back to her senses, she looked up. The adult and the child were looking at her with the same expression. What's wrong? Wen blinked. Mom, Uncle Yu said that he's free to take us to the flower garden today. Shall we go together? Oh. Fu Yun nodded. Ha. She looked up. It's better not to. Mom agreed. Uncle Yu, let's go quickly. Wen cheered. Okay. Fu Yun. She felt that something was wrong. Chapter 63. Fu Yun got into the car and saw Wen sitting in the child's seat, happily talking to Siyu. The child's seat was installed in an expensive car, and it looked quite out of place. Mr. Yu, you have a child at home? Fu Yun asked in surprise. She had never asked about Mr. Yu's private matters, and her understanding of him was based on the public's impression. Could it be that Mr. Yu had already gotten married in secret? Not at the moment. Before Fu Yun could let her imagination run wild, Siyu replied with a smile in his voice. It's better to be prepared. See, I used it now. Fu Yun rubbed her nose. No matter how stupid she was, she knew that the child's seat was only installed when there was a child at home. Who would install it for no reason? Well, Mr. Yu, are you really free? Of course, why? Actually, if you have something to do, you don't have to worry about us. In Fu Yun's impression, big celebrities were all so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. They wished that they could break 1 minute into 10 minutes. She could understand when they were in the village previously. After all, he was filming a show at that time, and it was normal for him to have nothing to do after the show was paused. But now, they were in the capital. Did he really not have anything to do? Siyu said, I'm free. I don't have anything to do recently. Siyu had been busy for a long time because of this period of leisure. Fu Yun only felt that people with power were willful. She was not afraid that her popularity would drop if she did not go out to do business. Wen heard the conversation between the adults and thought that his mother had misunderstood him as an unreasonable child. He said loudly, I asked Uncle Yu. Uncle Yu is free. If he was not free, he would not have pestered Uncle Yu to send them. He was not an insensible child. Fu Yun saw that Wen's little face was unhappy, so she skipped the topic. Because it was not rush hour, the car was unimpeded all the way. Half an hour later, they arrived at the flower garden. The flower garden had not officially opened for business and was not open to the public. In addition, the location was relatively remote, so there were not many pedestrians. The car drove directly into the private parking lot in the flower bed, and the three of them got out of the car one after another. Wen's petite body bounced up and down. Then, she held Siyu's hand and introduced Siyu seriously. Uncle Yu, this is my family's flower garden. Wen said proudly. It was not easy to own such a large garden in the capital. Mom and Grandpa Guo were the best. Siyu looked at it seriously. That's amazing. Because of the cold weather, there weren't many potted plants outside. There were only some plants that could withstand the cold. It looked quite spacious, but it didn't look messy. It was very tidy and clean. The flower shed was like another world. The temperature was constant and the greenery was abundant, as if it was spring when flowers were in full bloom. If Fu Yun was helping to take care of the flowers in the flower shed, she did not pay attention to Wen Wen and Siyu. The flower shed was very large. She and Uncle Guo would not be able to take care of it. When the time came, there would be other businesses. Fu Yun thought that she would need to recruit at least 3 people. One person would be mainly in charge of external business, and 2 people would be in charge of taking care of the flower garden. The employees needed to be in position before the official opening. Fu Yun asked Tian Tian to post a recruitment notice online and also posted a recruitment notice at the door. During the interview, Uncle Guo would be in charge of judging. After all, she was a well-known figure, so it was not convenient for her to appear for the time being. Uncle Guo had a good eye for people, but he was also very picky. Not long after the recruitment notice was posted, a resume was sent over. Tian Tian sent the resume to Fu Yun. If Fu Yun felt that it was suitable, she would ask Tian Tian to send a notice to the applicant and ask them to come for an interview tomorrow. Fu Yun's opening time was still a month later. When the weather was warm and the flowers bloomed in spring, it would be a good day. Therefore, it was fine to recruit employees who could work together before the opening. At night, Uncle Guo did not want to leave. He wanted to stay in the flower garden. How could Fu Yun let him stay here alone? The place was big, and there was no one else around. If something unexpected happened, no one would be able to find out in time. Therefore, she firmly disagreed. Uncle Guo could not persuade Fu Yun Ruo to stay, so he angrily took the car back. Fu Yun Ruo had many reasons. She was not familiar with the villa yet, and it was empty here. Moreover, the blankets and other necessities in the room were not ready. Now, he had to follow them back and forth. After the opening, there would be more people. Fu Yun Ruo did not care about him anymore. He could stay for a few days a month. She could bring Wen over on the weekends. Fu Yun Ruo looked outside and said to Qian Xingnan, "Can you drop us off at the entrance of the supermarket?" Fu Yun Ruo had been here a few times, so she was quite familiar with the surroundings. There was a large supermarket in the residential area, so it was very convenient to buy things there. This supermarket was specially designed to serve the residents in the residential area. Although it was called a large supermarket, it was not as big as the large supermarkets outside. It was divided into upper and lower floors, but it was very well equipped. If they did not have what they wanted to buy, they could register at the front desk and ask the supermarket to help them buy it and deliver it to their doorstep. They did not have to be secretive when shopping in the supermarket here. They came to buy things openly. Therefore, Fu Yun Ruo could see the famous people who often appeared on the screen here. There was not much food at home, so they needed to buy some fruits and vegetables and some daily necessities. Although they had brought a lot of things, they still lacked a lot of things after moving to a new house. Uncle Guo said, "Buy some blankets." Got it. Fu Yun Ruo and Uncle Guo got out of the car at the entrance of the supermarket, while Qian Xingnan drove the car back first. If they bought a lot of things, the supermarket employees would help deliver them to their doorstep. This 5-story building was a leisure, entertainment, and shopping center for the residents in the residential area. The first floor was the supermarket, the second floor was the gym, the third floor was the leisure and entertainment center, the fourth floor was the children's playground, and the fifth floor was the children's hobby and tuition classes. Although there were professional tutors at home, it was also good to learn some hobby classes with friends of the same age. Fu Yun Ruo had children at home, so she had specially learned about these. When the time came, she would see what hobbies Wen wanted to learn. They entered the supermarket and had just pushed a shopping cart when her phone rang. Fu Yun Ruo looked down and saw that the caller ID was Siyu. After she picked up the call, Wenwen's tender voice was heard. "Mom, where are you?" On the way back, Fu Yunruo heartlessly abandoned Wenwen and took her own car back. Now that they had gotten out of the car early, they were separated from Wenwen. "We came to the supermarket to buy things. You and Uncle Yu go home first." Fu Yunruo thought for a moment and said, "Mr. Yu, please take care of Wenwen for a while. Xingnan will be here soon." Fu Yunruo did not think of this when she was at the flower garden. When she remembered, Siyu was driving, so she did not inform her. Fu Yunruo comforted her for a while and hung up the phone. The things in the mall were more expensive. Many imported snacks and furniture could be seen here. However, there were not many of the same products on the shelves. It was obvious that they had taken the route of selling fewer things. For those large pieces of furniture, there were only a few samples displayed here. Only daily necessities and fruits and vegetables were consumed quickly. However, this was a special service for the community, so the money was well spent. Fu Yunruo first went to the living area to buy some odds and ends. "Hello, are you Yun?" A low and deep voice sounded not far away. Fu Yunruo looked up. A man in a suit and leather shoes was looking at her. His mature and handsome face was full of surprise. He inadvertently noticed that a slim back figure was somewhat familiar. When he saw the side profile, he felt that it was even more familiar. He asked tentatively. When he saw the face clearly, he was 100% sure. Lin Ji stood up and said to Fu Yunruo, "Can I ask you for an autograph?" It had to be said that the contrast between a handsome face and a shy smile was very cute. Fu Yunruo smiled and said, "Sure." Then, she took the pen and paper and signed her name in the empty space on the handkerchief. Siyu raised his eyebrows and looked at him carefully. Then, he walked over and picked up Wenwen with one hand. He said to Fu Yunruo familiarly, "Are you done buying?" Fu Yunruo looked at the things in the shopping cart. "Not yet." When Lin Ji saw Siyu, his smile immediately disappeared. He stared at Siyu with a serious face. Siyu glanced over casually. Their eyes met, and there seemed to be a crackling sound in the air. "Are you Mr. Siyu?" Lin Ji stretched out his hand politely with a fake smile. "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you. May I know who you are?" Siyu stretched out his hand. "My surname is Lin, and my name is Ji." "Hello, Mr. Lin. Does Mr. Siyu live here too?" "I've never seen you before." "It's normal that you haven't seen me before. After all, I was away for a few months when I was filming. Even if I was at home, I didn't go out often." "Is that so?" "That's too unlucky." Indeed, Fu Yunruo stared at the things in the shopping cart and silently calculated. After remembering what she was missing, she looked up and saw the two men looking at each other and exchanging pleasantries. However, she felt that something was wrong. She was puzzled. Could it be that Mr. Yu and her fans had some grudges? Fu Yunruo looked at this and that. No, it didn't seem like they had any grudges. Fu Yunruo stared at the two of them who had been holding hands. "Are you two like old friends at first sight?" Fu Yunruo thought that it was a good thing to have another friend. Chapter 64. The two men who were laughing like knives and swords suddenly restrained their aura. Siyu retracted his hand and turned to look at Fu Yunruo. He smiled slightly and said, "Yes, we hit it off at first sight." Lin Ji retracted his slightly numb hand. His smile was perfect as he nodded in agreement. "We regret that we didn't meet sooner." Fu Yunruo didn't understand the friendship between men, but she was busy now, so she said tentatively, "Then you guys can chat." I'll go buy something first. Lin Ji heard this and said, I'm familiar with the supermarket. Yun Yun, I can lead the way and give you advice on what you want to buy. Lin Ji's heart beat slightly faster. He looked at Fu Yunruo and felt unconsciously nervous. He regarded Fu Yunruo as a goddess, but in front of a goddess, he was no longer calm. Instead, he was like an inexperienced young boy. Before Fu Yunruo could answer, Siyut smiled and said, How can I waste your time? I'm also familiar with this supermarket. It's fine with me. Fu Yunruo looked at Siyu and then looked at Lin Ji. Whether Siyut said anything or not, Fu Yunruo had to refuse. Therefore, she tactfully refused, Thank you, but we have a lot of things to buy. We can just walk around and take a look. Lin Ji's eyes were disappointed, but he was worried that if he pestered Fu Yunruo too much, he would leave a bad impression on her, so he said, I was rude. Lin Ji looked at Siyu. He really wanted to ask her about her relationship with Siyu. He knew that they knew each other, but he didn't know that they were so familiar with each other. He felt the hostility of the other party towards him. They looked like a family of three, but he could also sense that Yun Yun's attitude towards Siyu was not ambiguous. He also wanted to exchange contact information with Yun Yun, but Lin Ji was afraid that she would feel that he had offended her. He hesitated for a moment and finally politely said goodbye. He thought reluctantly that since they lived in the same villa area, they would meet often, right? There was no hurry. After they left, Siyu said to Fu Yun seriously, Are they your fans? Idols and fans can't get too close because fans like their idols. Sometimes, it's not a good thing to get too close. Wen nodded in agreement. Fans were the most adorable group of people in the world, but when the devil was up, it would only make people feel afraid. Who could guarantee that he would only meet little cuties? You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. If he was an extreme fan, it would be a tragedy. Fu Yunruo. Didn't they feel like old friends at first sight just now? However, as a famous figure with a huge fan base, telling her this was considered a senior's advice to a junior. Fu Yun nodded, indicating that she would take it to heart. I don't mean to blame you. Of course, he knew that Fu Yunruo had good intentions. She just wanted to stay at the flower garden. I know. Fu Yunruo smiled and said, I just don't know when we'll be able to recruit someone. It was easy to find someone with professional skills, but it was not easy to find someone who knew martial arts and brought his wife along to look for a job. It's all because you're asking for too much. Uncle Guo muttered. I'm not asking for much either. I just hope that we can recruit a couple. That would be the best. The recruitment notice for the flower garden was sent out. There were many applicants, but Uncle Guo was picky. In the end, he finally found someone who caught his eye. It was a woman in her early 30s with good working ability. She had worked in related flowers before and had rich management experience. She did not live in the flower garden. Other than that, they still needed to recruit 2 more people. It was not easy to find them. As there were many precious plants in the flower garden, Fu Yunruo hoped to find a man who was skilled in martial arts and had a good character. He would live here during the day and night and be in charge of the safety of the flower garden. He would also recruit a middle-aged woman to be in charge of 3 meals and some chores. Fu Yunruo's focus would be on Wen and her career. She would need to be freed from the tedious work of cooking and cleaning. Since there were not many rooms in the flower garden, if Fu Yunruo wanted to find a couple, they could live together like this. The 3 rooms upstairs were a little crowded even for their own people. Fu Yunruo's room had bunk beds. If they lived here, Qian Xingnan would definitely live here too. Therefore, she would be in the same room as Qian Xingnan. As for Wen, he had a separate room. As he grew older in the future, he should have his own privacy. It was just that it was not easy to find someone to his liking. If it really did not work, he could build a small house next to the house. You're still not asking for much. Uncle Gua was dissatisfied, but he also knew that Fu Yunruo's request was the best for them. Fu Yunruo laughed and said, "In another week, if we still can't recruit anyone, we'll relax the conditions." "Excuse me." An unfamiliar voice suddenly interrupted. Fu Yunruo turned around and saw a middle-aged man in a well-ironed security guard uniform looking at Fu Yunruo nervously. "Hello, what's the matter?" In order to ensure the safety of the residents, there were often security guards patrolling the neighborhood. Fu Yunruo did not know why the security guard stopped her. The security guard looked a little nervous. He swallowed his saliva and said, "I'm sorry, Miss Fu. I accidentally heard you talking just now." He knew that his behavior was wrong, but after accidentally hearing their conversation, he still braced himself and stopped them. Fu Yunruo instinctively looked at Uncle Gua. Uncle Gua said with a straight face, "If you have something to say, say it. Why are you hemming and hawing?" The security guard rubbed his hands, but because he was tall and upright and had a stern look on his face, his behavior did not look wretched at all. He looked embarrassed. "I just heard that you seem to be hiring. I have 2 candidates here who are quite suitable. Can they apply to you? That brother of mine is a very loyal and honest person. It's just that he's a little disabled, but it doesn't affect his skills at all. I can't even beat him. Sister-in-law, who is also his wife, is also looking for a job. The security guard tried his best to say something nice, but perhaps because he did not say it often, his voice sounded dry. He was worried that he could not express himself clearly and was sweating profusely. "It's okay if they don't meet the requirements in the end. But, can you give them a chance?" Fu Yunruo could not bear to see it. The security guard obviously wanted to fight for a chance for his brother and risked losing his job for it. She finally told the security guard the address of the flower garden and asked his brother and his wife to try her place. If they could not remember the address, they could call the villa to ask for help. The security guard repeated it a few times and thanked her gratefully before leaving in a hurry. Uncle Guo glared at her unhappily. "Why are you being so kind?" Fu Yunruo comforted him. "It's just an interview opportunity. If they really don't meet our standards, I don't want them. Of course, if they meet the requirements, everyone would be happy and she would not need to hire anymore." Uncle Guo snorted coldly and did not say anything else. Fu Yunruo did not take this episode to heart. It was only when Sis Wang called and said that a couple came to apply for the job that she remembered this matter. Fu Yunruo looked at the time. It was only 9:30 p.m. They had not left the house yet. She forgot to tell the security guard about the interview time yesterday, so she asked Sis Wang to entertain them first. She would go over immediately. Fu Yunruo, Wen, and the rest took a car to the flower garden. There was a couple sitting in the living room. Half of their hair was white. The woman was a little reserved and uneasy, but the man's back was straight. Fu Yunruo, Uncle Gua, and Wen walked in. "Sorry to have kept you waiting." Fu Yunruo just said a few words to Sis Wang. She did not know when they arrived. When Sis Wang came to the flower garden, they were already waiting at the door. She did not know how long they had been waiting. The 2 of them stood up. "We came early." Only then did Fu Yunruo know what the security guard meant when he said that he was a little disabled. There was a scar on the left side of the man's face. This scar was very deep and had destroyed his left eye. At first glance, it looked a little scary, but his intact right eye had a determined look. Fu Yunruo was surprised for a moment, but she quickly returned to normal. She looked at Wen, only to see Wen looking at him curiously. She did not look scared. The woman looked at Fu Yunruo nervously. She knew that her man's injury was a hindrance to the city's appearance. Many companies did not hire him. He could not even be a cleaner. She was afraid that Fu Yunruo would ask them to leave. Fu Yunruo thought in her heart. Anyway, the security guards in the flower garden walked around the inner area and only came out at night. If there was no problem with their character and skills, there would be no problem. Chapter 65. The couple who came to apply for the job were 46 years old this year. They were childhood sweethearts. The man's name was Wei Wuguo, and the woman's name was Zhang Dongmei. Wei Wuguo was once a military academy student. He was a person with a strong sense of justice. One time, he went out to do justice during the holidays and injured his face and eye. Naturally, he couldn't become a soldier again and could only retire. He didn't cause trouble for the army. He took the allowance and retired directly to go home and find another way to make a living. However, because he was blind in one eye and had a scar on his face, many companies didn't hire him. In addition, he was only good at fighting. When the army gave him a place to study, he spent a lot of effort to pass the cultural exam. Other than his fighting skills, he wasn't so outstanding in other aspects that people ignored his appearance. Even if he became a security guard, people would care about his reputation and eventually return to his hometown to farm. Later, he met Zhang Dongmei, who was willing to live with him in his hometown. The two of them ended up together and had a daughter. Their lives were ordinary, but their daughter was a good student and got into Imperial University. They worked hard in their hometown and couldn't save much money all year round. The couple wanted to give their daughter a better life and save more money. In the end, they decided to try their luck and see if they could find a job. On the other hand, they wanted to be closer to their daughter. In order to find a job, he contacted his comrades who he hadn't seen for many years. After they retired from the army, some worked in the unit, while others looked for jobs on their own. Although some of the security guards in the community seemed very ordinary, in reality, this job was very leisurely and well paid. The benefits were very good. Wei Wuguo didn't expect his old comrades to introduce them to jobs, so the couple was very diligent in looking for jobs. He didn't expect that in just 5 days, a comrade would call him and say that an owner wanted to hire a couple. They both met the requirements and asked them to try. After Fu Yun learned about the man's life, she also learned about the woman's life. It was a very ordinary life. Fu Yun was quite tempted. They met the basic requirements, and there wasn't much of a problem with their people. However, she wanted to know how good their fighting skills were. If it was just ordinary, what if they were unlucky one day and were robbed here? Wouldn't they not be able to intimidate others and might even be injured? Coincidentally, Qian Xingnan was also there. Fu Yun wanted them to spar. In the end, the two of them tied, but according to Qian Xingnan, she lost. There was no problem with her skills and character. The flaw in her looks could be ignored. Moreover, this was a hero's medal, which would only make her admire it. In fact, she had gotten used to it after looking at it for a long time and did not find it scary. Uncle Guo did not have any objections. If Fu Yun let them join the company directly, they would be on probation for 3 months. If they got along well and there were no problems, they would be promoted to full members in advance. If Fu Yun offered them a generous salary, the couple would not have any objections and they could start work on the same day. As a result, the people in the flower bed were all present, and the atmosphere was even more lively. Uncle Guo could not wait to move to the flower bed the next day. Now that there were other people in the flower bed, Fu Yun had no reason to refuse. Therefore, she decided to stay with her son in the flower bed for the time being. The reason for moving over was to observe whether these two employees were qualified or not. If there were any problems, they would have to be replaced as soon as possible. Wen did not suspect anything. He was still very happy to live in the flower bed. He was very interested in Uncle Wei's skills. Every morning, when Uncle Wei practiced outside, he would watch from the side and move his chubby hands and feet a few times. He often saw Sister Xingnan practicing, but he felt that there was a difference between men and women. Therefore, even if he was curious, he only took a few more glances and did not pester to learn. Now that there was an even better one, Wen was even more interested. If he could learn a thing or two, he would benefit for life. There was another reason why Fu Yun wanted to live in the flower bed. She always felt that she was too close to Siyu, and it made her feel uncomfortable. Although they had lived under the same roof for a period of time in the countryside, Siyu had a sense of propriety at that time. They got along as comfortably as friends and did not feel ambiguous. However, now that they were living next door, they saw each other every day. Siyu would come over every morning to clock in and play with Wen. Occasionally, he would come over to help her when he saw her working. Moreover, she felt that Siyu seemed to be flirting with her. Sometimes, his attitude was a little ambiguous. Fu Yun thought of what Tian had said to her and could not help but think. Could it be that Siyu wanted to woo her? But she was unmarried and had a child. Thinking of Siyu's attitude towards Wen, perhaps even a biological father might not be to this extent. Did he really want to be Wen's stepfather? For a moment, Fu Yun was worried that she was overthinking, but for a moment, she felt that she was not wrong. In her dilemma, she simply avoided him. However, after staying for less than 2 days, Fu Yun still had to run back to the villa during the day because her flowers were in the greenhouse at home. Fu Yun took the opportunity to run back when Wen was full and taking an afternoon nap to ask Brother Wei and his wife to help look after them. She trusted this couple very much. She had seen their daughter, Wei Xiaoya, who had been admitted to Imperial Capital University. Fu Yun found out that the three of them were living in a rented house together and that Wei Xiaoya had found a temporary job, so she also let her stay in the flower garden temporarily so that the couple could be at ease. She temporarily shared a room with Wen, while Wei Xiaoya shared a room with Qian Xingnan. This time, Fu Yun deeply felt that there were not enough rooms. When she suggested asking someone to build 2 more rooms, Wei Wuguo directly said that she could leave it to him. He often helped people build houses in the countryside, so it was easier to build a 2-story house here. He just had to build it on the right side of the house. Coincidentally, they had nothing to do now, so the couple started working energetically. They were different every day. That was not all. Wei Wuguo's comrades, who were also the security guards of the neighborhood, also came. They were very grateful to Fu Yun for agreeing to let Wei Wuguo work here. They heard from somewhere that they were going to build a house, so they specially changed their shift and came over to help. This was even more efficient. The house was built in an instant. There was an extra room upstairs and downstairs. They could move in after a period of time. Back at the scene, Fu Yun thought that Siyu would not be at home in the afternoon and would be busy with other things. She quickly ran back to water and fertilize the flowers. After letting her imagination run wild for a while, she quickly focused all her attention on the orchids and worked without any distractions. Old Seven's leaves needed to be trimmed. Fu Yun lowered her head and took care of Old Seven. Just as she put the tools away, she turned around and suddenly saw a person standing at the door. She was shocked and instinctively took a step back. Be careful. Fu Yun's eyes narrowed. Siyu was already very close to her. He held her waist with one hand and his other hand reached over her to support the potted plant that she had accidentally knocked over in her panic. The two of them were very close. Fu Yun's nose was almost pressed against the other party's chest. She seemed to be surrounded by the other party's breath. Fu Yun's heart was beating very fast. She was scared. Her hands were on the shelf behind her. Her waist was pressed against the obstacle, and her body leaned back slightly. Did I scare you? Siyu moved a little further away and looked down at her. Fu Yun looked up. Why are you here? Didn't he scare her? Anyone who saw someone standing behind them without being mentally prepared would be scared, okay? Fu Yun Ruo felt as though her soul was about to leave her body. Sorry. Siyu felt a little wronged. Was he unbearably ugly? How could he scare her? His posture was clearly the most charming. I heard some movement here, so I came over to take a look. Fu Yun was speechless. She did not tell anyone about her thoughts. Qian Xingnan also did not know about her inner struggle. She only knew that Siyu was a friend, so she naturally let him in. I came back to take a look at the flowers. Okay. Siyu did not ask further. Fu Yun did not explain further. The two of them looked at each other speechlessly. Fu Yun then realized that their posture was not right. They were too close, and Siyu's hand was hugging her waist. Fu Yun instinctively reached out to push him away. She pushed with all her might, but he did not budge. Siyu stood in front of her like a mountain. Siyu looked down at the two palms that were pressed against his chest and raised his eyebrows slightly. Fu Yun followed his gaze. Her palms seemed to be able to feel the other party's body temperature through his clothes. It was so hot that her scalp was numb. A smile appeared in Siyu's eyes. Is it nice to touch? She immediately retracted her hand as if she had been electrocuted. I'm not. Fu Yun's face was burning red. Her original intention was to push him away, but it seemed like she was taking advantage of him. Mr. Yu. She tried to stay calm. I'm not used to being so close to others. Siyu retracted his hand and took 2 steps back. Fu Yun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Yun Ruo. Siyu had just called out her name when Fu Yun felt her scalp tingle. She quickly interrupted him. Mr. Yu, I'm done here. It's time to go back to the garden. If I don't go back, Wen will make a scene. I'm sorry. Fu Yun did not give Siyu a chance to speak. Siyu, okay. Be careful on the road. Fu Yun, ? She nodded blankly. That's it. Nothing else to say. What did he mean? Every time she thought that he was interested in her, he would not pester her or flirt with her in the next moment. It made her heart flutter, and she could not help but wonder what he meant. Mr. Yu, yes. Fu Yun swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. She felt that she was imagining things. If she really misunderstood, wouldn't it be very awkward in the future? If the other party's attitude was clearer, she could have rejected him. But now, she really could not say it. No, we're leaving. Okay. Siyu turned around and left. We'll play together when you come back. Fu Yun went back with a conflicted heart. But soon, she did not have the time to think about his thoughts. The garden would officially open in 10 days. But before that, there was a very important matter. Wen should go to kindergarten. Wen felt like a bolt from the blue. He was having fun, but he had to go to school. He did not want to go to kindergarten with a group of brats. Mom, you're not young anymore. You're already a 4-year-old baby. The other children are also going to kindergarten at your age. Mom, everything is good at home. I don't need you to accompany me. Grandpa Guo also doesn't need you to accompany him. There are uncles, aunties, and aunties in the garden. We don't need your help. What other reasons do you have? 1. All the excuses he wanted to find were blocked. Wen held back for a long time before he finally said righteously, but I know a lot of words and can calculate. I don't need to go to kindergarten to learn. Oh. Then I'll test you. Mom, go ahead and test me. Wen was very confident. He was familiar with the scripts and knew countless words. He even remembered the multiplication table and pinyin. He was not afraid of being tested at all. Fu Yun found a pen and paper and wrote a word. How do you pronounce this word? What does it mean? Was this a word? Wasn't it partial division leader? What was the meaning of this? Fu Yun said earnestly, baby, this is the simplest word. It's just one stroke. You have to learn it in kindergarten. 1. He remembered so many scripts, but he did not know how to pronounce this word. The sky is vast and the fields are boundless. Cattle and sheep are seen when the wind blows the grass. Where does it come from? There was no such thing in the ancient nursery rhymes. But he seemed to have some impression of it. What's the 13th decimal point of pi? Wen quickly counted with his fingers. 3,1415926. What was the number after that? Wen's eyes turned into mosquito coils. These questions were too difficult. Why didn't they test what 1 plus 1 equaled? Chapter 66. Wen was deeply shocked. He squatted in the corner and didn't say anything. He felt that he was at the level of a 6th grader in primary school, but he couldn't even answer his mother's question. It was too embarrassing. Fu Yun laughed secretly. She thought to herself, I can't control this little brat. Are you going to school obediently? Good. Wen said dejectedly. Fu Yun picked Wen up. Our baby is the best. He can memorize poems, count, and write. Mommy has never seen a child smarter than him. Why is our baby so amazing? Fu Yun quickly fed Wen sweet dates and praised him countless times. Wen's depressed mood was cured, but his little face was reserved. It's just a so. Wen was modest. There are still many things I don't know. So if baby goes to kindergarten and learns everything he doesn't know, he'll be even better. Okay. Wen finally smiled and agreed happily. Fu Yun struck while the iron was hot and quickly took the child to the kindergarten to sign up. After she bought a villa here, it would be convenient for her to sign up at the nearby kindergarten. After coming to the capital, she finally registered Wen's household register and could go to school normally without any impact. It was only a 10-minute drive and was very close. Soon, they arrived at the kindergarten. The kindergarten area was very big. The buildings were filled with childlike charm and fantasy, like a castle in a fairy tale. There were many parents and children who came to sign up. Because there were children, it was very lively. Fu Yun saw Wen looking at the playground where the children were playing, so she said, let Sister Xingnan take you to play with the children, okay? Fu Yun and Qian Xingnan only brought Wen to the registration this time. If Wen wanted to play, then only Qian Xingnan could watch over her. She had to go and see the school situation. Wen immediately shook her head and grabbed Fu Yun's hand. I'm not going to play with them. It was too childish. He didn't come to kindergarten to play. He wanted to learn. He was just a little curious. It turned out that there were so many things to play in this kindergarten and school. It was too frivolous. Seeing this, Fu Yun led him to meet the teacher. The parents who came to sign up were all well-dressed and driving luxury cars. At a glance, it was obvious that they were at least middle class and above successful people. She didn't expect herself and Wen to be so well known here. Many parents brought their children here to get to know each other. It had been more than half a year since last year's show. After that, they kept a low profile and basically did not show their faces in front of the public. They thought that not many people could recognize them in real life. Wen did not expect so many people to come and greet her. She even received a lot of business cards. She also gained a bunch of brothers and sisters. If Fu Yun reported her name to Wen, she would become a student of the lower class. School would officially start in 3 days. Fu Yun brought Wen out early in the morning. When they returned, it was almost midnight. Siyu was already at home and was chatting with Uncle Gua. Although Uncle Gua did not follow them to school, he was still very concerned about Wen. Hence, it was rare that he was not at the flower garden. Siyu asked, "Have you finished registering?" Fu Yun nodded. Yes. She told Uncle Gua and Siyu about the school situation. Her tone was filled with satisfaction. "Uncle Yu, you're here." Siyu patted Wen's head. Wen is going to kindergarten soon. What reward do you want? Wen shook his head. He did not want any reward. He had a lot now. Siyu thought for a moment and said, "How about this? I'll bring you to the amusement park in the afternoon." Wen immediately nodded, her eyes sparkling. Okay. Uncle Gua massaged his waist and said with his hands behind his back, "This old man won't join in the fun." Fu Yun hesitated. "You're a public figure. If this face appeared in the crowd, wouldn't it cause chaos? How could they play? Have you forgotten? I said that I have a perfect disguise." Siyu winked at Fu Yun. Fu Yun said, "Why don't you bring Wen?" "I won't go." Wen ran to Fu Yun and asked in confusion, "Mom, aren't you bringing me? Let Uncle Yu bring you." "No, Mom will go too." Wen acted coquettishly in front of Fu Yun without any pressure. Fu Yun. She thought for a moment. "All right, let's call Tian and the rest. This way, it would not feel like a family of 3 going out." "Yes, yes." Fu Yun looked up inadvertently and met a pair of deep and focused eyes. Their eyes met and Siyu's eyes lit up with a smile. Fu Yun scratched her face. "Mr. Yu, you don't mind, right?" "I don't mind. It's more lively with more people." Fu Yun sent a message to Tian and asked if Brother Qi and the rest were free, as well as Wei Xiaoye. However, in the end, only Tian was free. It was too sudden. They had already arranged things to do in the afternoon and could not find the time. After the lunch break, Qian Xingnan put on makeup for Fu Yunruo. She looked like a completely different person. Then, she put on a hat and a pair of large black-rimmed glasses. The disguise was perfect. Then, Qian Xingnan put on some makeup for Wen. Fu Yun was watching from the side. When she heard the doorbell ring, she went to open the door. An unfamiliar person appeared in front of her. He was wearing an ordinary black jacket and a hat. At first glance, he looked completely unfamiliar. "Hello." It was also an unfamiliar voice. Fu Yun wanted to ask who it was, but she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. She asked uncertainly, "Mr. Yu? You recognize me?" The voice changed back to its familiar tone. Fu Yun couldn't help but take a few more glances. This change was amazing. She could still see some traces of her original beauty, but Siyu seemed to have changed his appearance. His skin was a few degrees darker, and he looked much more rugged. She didn't know what he did to his face, but even the shape of his face had changed. His eyebrows had also become ordinary thick eyebrows. "How is it?" Fu Yun gave him a thumbs up. Perfect. Fu Yun let him in. She secretly sighed in her heart. He was too amazing. When Siyu entered the house, Wen sized him up for a moment before recognizing that it was Siyu. She quickly rushed forward and circled around Siyu. Her little face lit up as if she wanted to learn this trick. Not long after, Tian arrived. They didn't drive out much and just drove Siyu's car. There was enough space for 4 adults and a child. They went to the largest amusement park in the capital. Now that the weather had warmed up, many people came to the amusement park to play. Not only were there adults bringing their children to play, but there were also couples or friends. Fu Yunruo looked at the crowded amusement park. It's going to take a long time to queue up, there were so many people queuing for every ride. 3 to 4 hours wouldn't be enough to play anything. Siyu said to Fu Yun, wait here. I'll be back soon. Then, Siyu quickly disappeared in front of them. Fu Yun asked Wen, which one do you want to play? Wen looked around excitedly. This is an amusement park. It's so lively and fun to look at. He hadn't been to an amusement park before. He was also someone who had been brought to an amusement park by his parents. Wen narrowed her eyes happily. Mommy, what do you want to play? I'll play with you. Wen said proudly. Fu Yun immediately smiled. Wen wants to play whatever Mommy wants to play. Then it would be difficult to choose. There were so many rides in the amusement park. When Siyu returned, he was holding a few unique black cards in his hand. Take these cards. If you want to play any ride, you don't have to queue. Go through the special passage. Siyu distributed the cards and gave one to each person. Wen suddenly heard a burst of screams. Not far away, on the winding and rugged roller coaster road, the roller coaster whistled past, leaving waves of exciting screams. Wen's eyes lit up. Mommy, let's take the roller coaster. It looked so fun. Fu Yun. The corner of her mouth twitched. Was it so exciting right from the start? Without waiting for her to reject, Siyu said, you haven't reached the age limit. You can't play for now. Wen said, oh, in disappointment. Fu Yun said, let's go ride the wooden horse. Ride the bumper cars. Before they could come to a conclusion, Tian said, let's walk and look around. If we see a ride that interests us, we'll play. When everyone heard this, they felt that it made sense. Hence, they decided to walk around first. Wen was too small. When he walked in the crowd, he was instantly drowned out. Furthermore, no matter how high he looked, he could only see one person. Siyu picked him up and placed him on his neck. Wen's vision instantly rose. It was as if he could see the mountains. He looked around happily. He was the tallest. The other children who sat on their father's neck were not as tall as him. As they walked, they finally saw a ride that was suitable for Wen. Hence, they brought Wen to play. After playing enough, they went to another ride. When they saw the merry-go-round, they went to ride it. Fu Yun took a lot of photos of Wen. At this moment, she felt regretful. Everyone was so good at disguising themselves that they could not recognize each other. Wen was soon high from playing and went to ride the bumper cars. Fu Yun and Wen were in one, while the others were in another. They wandered around the venue and bumped into each other. Fu Yun was also having a lot of fun and could not help but laugh. After playing once, they were not satisfied, so they played a second time. Wen's face was red. She said to Siyu, who was standing outside, Uncle Yu, come down and play too. Siyu waved his hand. Just as he was about to refuse, Fu Yun looked over with a smile, Mr. Yu, come and play too. It's very fun. Okay. Siyu walked down the stage and randomly chose a small car. His long legs were bent, but it still looked narrow. It did not match the style of the small car. Fu Yun could not help but laugh. Mom, quickly bump into Uncle Yu, Wen said excitedly. Fu Yun obeyed her command. Siyu's car was crooked. After a while, he mastered the skill and skillfully controlled the steering wheel. He nimbly avoided the mother and son's pursuit and ran around the venue. Wen was excited every time she saw that they were about to collide, but it was always just a little short. Wen pursed her lips. Uncle Yu, don't run like that. What was the point of playing chase if the bumper cars did not collide with each other? Siyu raised his eyebrows and changed direction. Then, he collided with Fu Yun's car. Wen was instantly happy. After 2 rounds, everyone was satisfied and moved on to the next event. While walking on the road, Tintin's sharp eyes noticed that there were people selling candied fruits in the crowd not far away. Go and buy candied fruits. Wen heard and quickly said, I'll go too. Tian quickly held Wen's hand and squeezed through the crowd to chase after them. The candied fruits were running away. Wen. Fu Yun saw the 2 of them run into the crowd and quickly chased after them. The crowd in front of her surged, and she could not see them in the blink of an eye. Don't worry. Siyu pressed Fu Yun's shoulder. Qian Xingnan is already following them. Chapter 67. Fu Yun Ruo looked around, but Qian Xingnan had already disappeared. Shall we go look for them? Fu Yun Ruo tried her best to tiptoe and look forward, but there were too many people and she couldn't see anyone familiar. She lifted her feet and walked forward, but she didn't expect to be grabbed by the wrist. Fu Yun Ruo looked over in confusion. Siyu said, let's wait here. They'll come back after they buy something. If we look for them, we'll miss them. Fu Yun Ruo thought about it and felt that it made sense. The few of them had chased after the candied hawthorn seller. They probably hadn't gone far and would be back soon. Hence, the 2 of them walked to a more conspicuous spot with fewer people and stood there. Fu Yun Ruo realized that Siyu had been holding her wrist. She moved her hand, but when the other party let go, she quickly withdrew her hand. That circle of wrist seemed to be on fire, and a steady stream of heat spread from it. Fu Yun Ruo unconsciously clenched her hand, trying to disperse the heat. Siyu turned his head to look at her and said with certainty, You're avoiding me. No, I'm not. Fu Yun Ruo avoided his gaze. Then, she made herself look not guilty at all. We're friends. Why would I avoid you for no reason? Is that so? Siyu raised his eyebrows. Of course. Your flower bed will be opening in 10 days, right? Will I have the honor of attending your opening ceremony? Sure. Fu Yun Ruo nodded. But you have to disguise yourself. Fu Yun Ruo looked at his current outfit and felt that it was fine. There would definitely be passers-by on the opening day. Fu Yun Ruo didn't want to cause a sensation because of Siyu's appearance. Although this was an invisible advertisement, his face was too eye-catching. Siyu Ruo couldn't help but press her head. Are you looking down on me? Fu Yun Ruo quickly turned her head away. Don't touch me. My hat is going to be crooked. Siyu Ruo chuckled softly. Fu Yun Ruo looked at him suspiciously. She was 70% sure that Siyu was interested in her, right? Should she make things clear first? Mom! A clear and loud voice was heard. Fu Yun Ruo turned around to take a look and ran over gently. She raised her small face and said, Where did you go? When I turned around, you were gone. Fu Yun could not help but pinch his chubby little face. You still have the cheek to say that. Who was the one who abandoned his mother and ran away? Wen blinked guiltily. I went to buy candied haws for Mom. The uncles selling candied haws followed the flow of people, and it was not easy for them to catch up. Where's the Tonghulu? Fu Yun looked at his empty little chubby hand. Wen turned around and saw that Tiantian's sister had already walked out from the crowd. He hurriedly ran over and took 2 red candied haws, then ran in front of Fu Yun. Mommy, here. Fu Yun took it. Thank you, Wen. Siyu asked, where's mine? Wen looked up and hesitated for a moment. Then, he gave the other candied haws to him. Uncle, here. Tian bought one for each person and still had more in her hands. Then, she handed them to Wen. This candied haws is quite authentic. It's sweet and sour. It's delicious. Fu Yun had not eaten this snack for many years, so she was also quite interested. The group of people had a candied haws in their hands and ate as they walked. Fu Yun saw that Wen had already eaten 3, and was afraid that it would not be good for him to eat too much, so she told him not to eat any more. Wen looked at the remaining candied haws and was a little reluctant to part with them. However, he was an obedient child. Besides, he still had to save some for other delicious food, so he gave the remaining candied haws to Fu Yun. Fu Yun had already finished 1 skewer. No matter how delicious it was, she would not be able to eat so much in one go. Just as Fu Yun was in a difficult position, Siyu took the remaining candied haws from Fu Yun's hands and ate them without a change in expression. Wen pulled Fu Yun's hand and pointed at the very eye-catching Ferris wheel. He said excitedly, Mom, let's go ride the Ferris wheel. Then, Wen said with a little adult face, I heard that if we ride the Ferris wheel together and make a wish at the top, we can be together forever. He wanted to be with his mother forever. Fu Yun did not know whether to laugh or cry. Where did you hear this from? He was young but mischievous. When Siyu heard this, he flicked Wen's little head with his hand. That's when you're sitting with the person you like. Wen said confidently, Mom is the person I like the most. He was not a 3-year-old child. Of course, he knew that the Ferris wheel said that one could make a wish between lovers, but it did not say that it could not be between family members. Family members could also make a wish to be together forever. In this life, if he lived to be 80 years old, his mother would have to live to be 100 years old. This way, they would be together forever. Say this to your future wife. Wen puffed up his face and said unhappily, even if I have a wife, Mom is still the person I like the most. He would not be like other people who forgot about their mother after having a wife. He would treat his wife well, and he would also treat his mother well. He did not believe that his taste was so bad that he would fall in love with a wife who could not get along with such a good mother. Fu Yun was elated when she heard this. She felt that regardless of whether Wen could do it in the future, it was worth it to hear him say this sentence now. Fu Yun smiled and said, Mom will not be a 3rd wheel in the future. She did not want to be an evil mother-in-law. In the future, when Wen had a family, she would not be disliked and would be a good mother-in-law who understood things. However, when she thought about how Wen would have a wife in the future, she felt sad and gratified. She hoped that her family's pig would be able to get a good cabbage. In the end, they went to ride the Ferris wheel. As there were 5 of them, Fu Yun, Wen, and Siyu sat in the same carriage. They played until 9:00 in the evening before returning home to have a good meal. For the next 2 days, whatever Wen wanted to do, Fu Yun agreed to it when she thought about how he would be going to kindergarten soon. Wen was very happy and everyone agreed to his requests. He was so happy that he rolled around. Soon, it was the day of kindergarten. On this day, not only Fu Yun, even Uncle Gua and Siyu personally sent Wen to school. Today was the first day of school, and it was very significant. It was rare for Fu Yun to dress up meticulously. She also dressed Wen up like a little prince who walked out of a fairy tale and vowed to make him the most handsome little brat in the kindergarten. In order to let Wen leave a good impression on the little classmates, Fu Yun put in a lot of effort and specially baked a box of bear biscuits for him to share with the little classmates and make good friends. 2 cars stopped at the school gate. Fu Yun, Wen, and the rest got out of the car. There was a group of adults and children at the gate, and it was very lively. Fu Yun held Wen's hand and walked forward. Siyu, who was wearing sunglasses in a disguise, walked on the other side and held Wen's hand. Uncle Guo looked around and nodded secretly. This kindergarten was not bad. Hello, Miss Fu. You are here. A young girl walked over and greeted them with a warm smile. Hello, Teacher Su. Teacher Su was the teacher of Wen's small class. In the future, she and 2 other teachers would be in charge of Wen's kindergarten. Wen looked up and greeted obediently, Teacher Su. Hello, Wen. Teacher Su's gaze landed on the tall man at the side. Is this Wen's father? Hello. Hello, Teacher Su. My surname is Si. Mr. Si. Fu Yun saw that Siyu actually acquiesced and hurriedly wanted to deny it, but Siyu had already started chatting with Teacher Su. Do you want to send the child to the classroom now? How is the school's curriculum arranged? What about the daily schedule and outdoor activities? Can we parents watch how the child goes to class today? How many children are in a class? Teacher Su answered patiently. Fu Yun missed the opportunity to explain. It felt weird to interrupt and explain again. She could only gloomily skip this topic. Forget it. Anyway, Siyu would not come to the kindergarten in the future. If it was a misunderstanding, then so be it. Teacher Su would probably forget about it in a few days. Our child is naughty. If she causes any trouble in school, tell us parents immediately. We will definitely teach her well. Of course. Teacher Su brought the parents to visit the school's classrooms. Before they reached the classroom, they heard crying. Teacher Su hurriedly said and hurriedly went to the classroom to help calm the children. Fu Yun and the others were a few steps behind and arrived at the classroom door. The one who cried the loudest was a fair and chubby child. He was hugging the thigh of a man in a suit and leather shoes and howling. Fu Yun saw the man's face turn black. Wen pursed her lips. These little brats were not weaned. It was just going to school. What was there to cry about? It was too childish. Chapter 68. The children's cries shook the heavens, rising and falling one after another, lingering in the air. Fu Yunruo lowered her head to look at her child. Children all had a herd mentality. When one child cried, the other children would cry as well. However, Wen was not affected at all. His little expression was cool. Teacher Su quickly went to coax the children. She and the lifestyle teacher were very experienced. They could tell which children were really crying and which were just following the crowd. They quickly coaxed the group of children. Kong, who was crying the loudest, barely stopped crying. However, when he saw that his father was about to leave, he immediately pouted and continued crying. He did not want to go to kindergarten. The children who had just stopped crying continued crying. Kong's father had a headache from the crying. Then, he said to Kong, "Look, your little brother is not crying. Aren't you embarrassed to cry? Kong Kong, who was crying with his head raised and eyes closed, opened his eyes when he heard that. He saw his little brother looking at him curiously. His little brother looked better than the prettiest little princess he had ever seen. Kong Kong sniffed and wiped his tears heroically. Then, he walked over and held Wen Wen's hand. Little brother, my name is Kong Kong. What's your name? My name is Wen Wen. Wen Wen looked up and felt a little depressed. He realized that the children in the class seemed to be taller than him. When would he grow up? It was too worrying. Little brother Wen Wen. When Kong Kong saw such a beautiful little brother, he immediately threw his thoughts of not going to kindergarten to the back of his mind. He pulled Wen Wen and walked into the classroom happily. Wen Wen waved at Fu Yun Roa and the others, then followed Kong Kong into the classroom. Mom, you can go back. Come and pick me up in the afternoon. Little brother, sit here. Kong Kong's seat was next to him. He also sat in his seat and said happily, I'll sit with little brother. Don't worry, I'll protect you in kindergarten in the future. The little girl, who was wearing a pink sweater and gauze dress and playing with a doll, looked up and looked over. You look like my Prince Charming. Lele looked at him curiously and said in a childish voice, my Prince Charming is Wen Wen. What's your name? Kong Kong said to Lele, brother's name is Wen Wen. You look like my Prince Charming, even your name is the same. Lele clapped her hands happily. Let me tell you, my idol Wen Wen is the most handsome little prince. When I grow up, I want to marry him. Lele only remembered that she used to like a little Prince Charming on TV, but she hadn't seen him for half a year. Children tended to be forgetful. Even now, she still remembered the little Prince Charming's appearance and name. It was true love. Wen Wen, Lele spoke very loudly. The kindergarten ended at 4:30 p.m. When they arrived at the kindergarten, it was 4:15 p.m. It was exactly 15 minutes early. This was the school entrance. There were already many parents waiting there. Fu Yun got out of the car and happened to see the parents of Wen Wen's classmates gathering together to talk. Soon, it was 4:30 p.m. Not long after, the teachers walked out with groups of children who had lined up. Fu Yun saw her son among the children at a glance. Wen Wen was the shortest child in the class and was first in line. Fu Yun went over and verified the information with Teacher Su. Fu Yun noticed that Wen Wen was listless and felt anxious. What was wrong with Wen Wen? Could he have been bullied? Mom. Wen Wen saw Fu Yun and became a little more energetic, but he was still listless. She held Wen Wen's hand. What's wrong with Wen Wen? Teacher Su said, Wen Wen is doing very well in school. Many children like to play with him. Teacher Su did not know why he was so listless after school. She had been paying attention to Wen Wen at all times. He was not bullied. He was quite happy when he was playing games previously. Wen Wen shook her hand. Mom, let's go home. Okay. Fu Yun held Wen Wen's hand and got into the car. She asked with concern, what did the baby do in school? Can you share it with Mom? Wen Wen was in low spirits. I don't want to go to kindergarten. When Fu Yun heard this, she asked anxiously, what's wrong? Did the other children bully you? Wen Wen shook his head. No one bullied me. Then, can you tell Mom why you don't want to go to kindergarten? Wen Wen sighed and said sternly, kindergarten is too childish. Most of the time, I play games. I want to study. Playing games was a waste of his time. Most importantly, he was actually very happy playing games. It was all because the environment had eroded his thoughts and assimilated him. He was clearly here to study. Fu Yun. She never expected that it would be for this reason. Mom, I want to go to primary school. Wenwen thought for a moment. Let's go to the 4th grade. Fu Yun said earnestly, baby, primary school is not something you can go to just because you want to. Although you are very capable, you still have to be down to earth and take one step at a time. Although Fu Yun taught Wenwen a lot of words and numbers, she was not a teacher after all. Without a system to teach him, Wenwen could not go to primary school at all. Even if he could go to primary school, she would not let him go so early. Think about it. The 4th grade is full of big brothers and sisters. Their desks are so high. If you sit on the chair, you can't even show your little head. You can't even see what the teacher is writing on the blackboard. How are you going to study? Wenwen. He looked at his small arms and legs and sighed sadly. Fu Yun said gently, kindergarten will also teach you knowledge. Today is the first day of school. The teacher wants you to get familiar with each other and familiarize yourself with the environment. That's why you played more games. Think about it, didn't you quickly become good friends with your classmates after playing the game? Do you want to play with your good friends again tomorrow? Wenwen hesitated. Was kindergarten like this? Kindergarten pays attention to education and fun. When you play games, will the teacher teach you knowledge? That was true. You can't think that kindergarten is not good just based on your first impression. How about this? You can go to kindergarten for another 1 or 2 weeks. If you still feel that you can't learn knowledge in kindergarten, we'll think of another way. Wenwen thought for a moment and felt that his mother made a lot of sense. Hence, he nodded. Okay. After resolving this matter, Wenwen's mood instantly improved. Mom, let me tell you. Kindergarten, Fu Yun smiled when she heard Wenwen's energetic little voice. After 8:00, Siyu came back from outside and came to see how Wenwen was doing on his first day of school. At this time, Fu Yun took the child out for a walk. The green environment in the villa area was well done. It was brightly lit and there was a children's playground. Wenwen giggled as she followed the older child up and down the castle. Fu Yun stood outside and watched. When Siyu came over, he saw Lin Ji standing beside Fu Yun. The two of them were talking and laughing. Lin Ji's voice was slightly excited. Really? That's great. I'll definitely be there on time. Roar roar. Mr. Yu. Siyu walked over and stood quietly between the two of them. Then, he smiled at Lin Ji and said, Mr. Lin, what a coincidence. Fu Yun and Lin Ji were only separated by a person's distance. Siyu came in sideways and was very close to Fu Yun. She took 2 steps back and looked up. Mr. C. Lin Ji's smile faded slightly and he greeted him politely. Siyu took a step back towards Fu Yun, forming a clear distinction between them. What were you talking about just now? Lin Ji smiled faintly and said, Yun invited me to attend the opening ceremony of her flower bed. Yes, you should be invited. Everyone will welcome you. Lin Ji. He seemed to be careless. Yun also promised that I can go to the villa's greenhouse to see the orchids she's raising. Speaking of which, I'm the first fan to see the orchids with my own eyes. It's such an honor. Ha. Siyu chuckled. He was the first fan to see the orchids with his own eyes. Wasn't he thinking too much? Fu Yun. Was this how friends got along with each other at first sight? Wasn't this clearly a tit for tat? Yun, can I take a few photos when the time comes? Lin Ji walked past Siyu and stood in front of Fu Yun. Of course. Wenwen looked up and saw the 3 adults. She stopped playing, and stopped exercising and quickly ran over. Uncle Yu. Siyu carried the child over his head and spun him around before holding him in his arms. Fu Yun asked, Wen, aren't you playing anymore? Wen shook her head and emphasized, I'm exercising. He wanted to grow taller as soon as possible. Yes, mommy was wrong. Baby is exercising. Fu Yun saw that it was about time and prepared to go back. Lin Ji said, I'm going back too. They could go together. They lived in the same neighborhood and the chances of meeting were quite high. Fu Yun and Lin Ji met a few more times and knew each other's situation. Lin Ji's house was not far from Fu Yun's house. It was only a few buildings away. Fu Yun and Lin Ji walked in front while Siyu carried Wen and walked a step or two behind. Wen looked at them again and again. She leaned close to Siyu's ear and whispered, Uncle Yu, is Uncle Lin trying to woo my mommy? Siyu slowed down and put some distance between them before whispering, he wants to be your stepfather. Siyu thought that with how much Fu Yun valued Wen, if Wen firmly opposed it, he would not be able to woo her no matter how hard he tried. Wen sized up Lin Ji and hesitated before saying reluctantly, if mommy likes it, then it's okay. Siyu. As expected, sons were not considerate. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.